Chapter 642. In fact, when Lu Ping found this hidden cliff, he had already discovered the intricate array that enveloped the bottom of the cliff. He could also clearly sense that Zhang Tianlin Laozu's divine telekinesis had also discovered him. However, even though Zhang Tianlin Laozu's divine telekinesis had discovered Lu Ping first, it did not bring him into the array. Lu Ping thought about it and understood Zhang Tianlin Laozu's intention. This was to test him on his method of breaking the array. Lu Ping's divine telekinesis instantly covered the entire array. Then, his eyes shone with green light as he carefully examined every detail of the array. However, to Lu Ping's disappointment, although he could clearly see the trajectory of the array, he could not break it without damaging the foundation of the array. Lu Ping thought about it and was about to use Failing Sect's secret forbidden technique when his heart suddenly stopped. Lu Ping had never used this Failing Sect's secret forbidden technique in front of others. The array in front of him was obviously created by the sect's newly promoted array grandmaster, Perfected Xianchen. Then, could this not be Tianlin Laozu's idea? But Perfected Xianchen himself asking to test Lu Ping? With enlightened Master Xianchen's knowledge and foresight, as long as Lu Ping used Failing Sect's secret forbidden breaking technique, he would be able to break the array formation in front of him. On the other hand, enlightened Master Xianchen's secret technique would also be easily seen through. If it was during normal times, Lu Ping could take this opportunity to pass down this secret technique in Jinling through his teacher. It could also be used to strengthen the position of Zhonghua's lineage in Jinling. However, this inherited secret technique was related to an important secret cultivation plan for Lu Ping in the future, and it could not be known to others yet. In all fairness, even though Lu Ping's divine sense and 3 Pure One's true pupils couldn't completely crack the intricate array formation, it was still possible for him to shatter the array formation with the combination of his skills and spells. But obviously he couldn't do that right now. In desperation, Lu Ping could only make a helpless expression and quietly wait for the sect senior to bring him into the array. After entering the array along the path that Perfected Xianchen had used the cobblestone to point out, Perfected Xianchen did not ask Lu Ping about the array. Although Lu Ping was surprised, his attention was quickly attracted by the heavily injured Daoist Xianchen. Daoist Xuanchen's face was pale and haggard. It was obvious that he had suffered serious internal injuries. However, after hearing Tianlin Laozu's question, Lu Ping had no choice but to answer first. This disciple has long yearned for the cultivation world of the Central Plains. After the incident on Frost Island, this disciple had wanted to follow Senior Uncle to the Northern Ice Plains to search for Yingtian Dojo. However, Senior Uncle Laozu did not allow it. After that, this disciple coincidentally found a super long-distance teleportation formation in Laozu's cave abode that year. This disciple was overjoyed and activated the teleportation formation, but I did not expect to be teleported here. Lu Ping's words were a mixture of truth and lies, and there were many loopholes. However, Zhang Tianlin Laozu and the others did not care about this. What they cared about was that Lu Ping was able to clearly inform the sect about this teleportation formation. As for whether or not Lu Ping had reported the teleportation formation after discovering it, in the eyes of Jinling's and Laozu's eyes, it was not important. After all, the teleportation formation was discovered by Lu Ping. It was only natural that he had profited from this teleportation formation. As long as Lu Ping was able to report this matter to Laozu's at a later time, how much he had profited previously was up to his own ability. A secret teleportation formation that connected the North Sea to the border between the Central Plains and the Northern Ice Plains. Although it was a small teleportation formation that could only be used by one person, it was enough to make Zhang Tianlin Laozu and the others go wild with joy. The cultivation world of the North Sea and the Central Plains had been isolated for many years. One only needed to know that the disciples of the North Sea could only travel to the Central Plains through the teleportation formations of the East Sea. Furthermore, due to the limited number of spots, only the elite disciples of the late core forging realm were qualified to obtain a spot. Now that there really was a teleportation formation that connected the North Sea to the Central Plains, the significance of this to the rising Jinling was self-evident. Zhang Tianlin Laozu and the other 4 perfected masters looked at each other, and they could all see the hidden joy in each other's eyes. However, Zhang Tianlin Laozu was the best at maintaining his composure, and he quickly hid his emotions. At the same time, He also guessed the truth of many things through Lu Ping's narration. He smiled and said, in that case, Qingjian Laozu should also have a cave abode on this side of the teleportation formation. It seems that Qingjian Laozu is not as simple as he seems. Furthermore, from the information revealed by the Blue Sea sect, not only is Qingjian Laozu really the successor of the Yingtian sect, but it is also very likely that he knows the true location of the Yingtian dojo. Lu Ping couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. Zhang Tianlin Laozu had always had a carefree and unrestrained image in the sect. However, the intelligence and wisdom that he displayed at this moment made Lu Ping admire him from the bottom of his heart. These Dharma manifestation Laozu, after hundreds of years of cultivation, had been influenced by the deceit of the cultivation world. Which one of them was easy to get along with? Perfected Master Xian San pondered for a moment and said, Senior brother, what you mean is that the Yingtian dojo might have already been taken by someone else? Hearing Perfected Master Xian San's words, the three perfected masters Xian Su, Xian Ju, and Xian Chan could not help but look a little disappointed. Zhang Tianlin Laozu laughed and said, that's not very possible. The Yingtian dojo is a large and powerful sect in the cultivation world. There are many experts in the sect, and they are even stronger than the Feiling sect. Qingjian Laozu is only an early Dharma adept. Moreover, from the situation when he was being chased by the Songhai sect, his strength is not that great. With such strength, even if he is the successor of the Yingtian dojo, how many of the high-level prohibitions in the Yingtian dojo can he break? Zhang Tianlin Laozu's words made the three Zenrins heave a sigh of relief. Even perfected Master Xian San nodded his head in agreement. Lu Ping admired Zhang Tianlin Laozu's guess very much. The truth was just as he had guessed. In the Yingtian dojo, Qingjian Laozu had only broken some areas that were covered by 1 or 2 prohibitions, and there was only one area that was covered by 3 prohibitions. Although Lu Ping admired Zhang Tianlin Laozu's guess and deduction, he still didn't expect that Zhang Tianlin Laozu had guessed more than this. Zhang Tianlin Laozu looked at Lu Ping, who had a pensive look on his face, and asked with a smile, the things that Qingjian Laozu obtained from the Yingtian dojo back then must have been stored in the cave abode that you teleported from. Do you have anything that you don't need to give to the sect? Lu Ping knew that Zhang Tianlin Laozu was reminding him that the biggest taboo in the cultivation world was not to worry about scarcity, but to worry about inequality. Even though these things were obtained by Lu Ping, and even if he didn't use a single thing, no one would say anything, he was still dissatisfied with Lu Ping. This would not be beneficial to Lu Ping's growth in the sect in the future. However, after Lu Ping told everyone about the teleportation array, he was already prepared. After Zhang Tianlin Laozu mentioned it, Lu Ping wiped his storage ring, and 3 thick ancient books appeared in his hand. Lu Ping carefully placed the 3 ancient books in front of Zhang Tianlin Laozu. When everyone saw how solemn Lu Ping was, they were very surprised to see the contents of these 3 ancient books. However, at this time Zhang Tianlin Laozu looked at the 3 ancient books in front of him with a solemn expression. He carefully took the 3 ancient books, opened one of them very gently, and read the contents. After a long time, spiritual master Zhang Tianlin had roughly browsed through the 3 ancient books. Only then did he put the 3 ancient books back together with satisfaction. He sighed and said, with these 3 ancient books in hand, even if this trip to the Yingtian dojo is fruitless, it will be worth it. Spiritual Master Xian Su, who was at the side, said in surprise, Senior Brother Zhang, what are these 3 ancient books? Are they really so precious? Zhang Tianlin Laozu laughed. Seeing that the other 3 were also curious, he explained, in the cultivation world, other than the Yuan family, which has received the legacy of Peng Laozu, it is said that when the 7th patriarch preached and taught disciples, he passed down a total of 49 paths to the true spirit, corresponding to the 7 attributes and the 7 main bloodlines. Therefore, when measuring the strength of a sect, a very important standard is to see how many complete ancient books they have from the blood condensation realm to the late Dharma realm. At this time, spiritual master Xian Chan also asked in surprise, Senior brother, could it be that junior nephew Lu's 3 ancient books are actually 3 complete ancient books that have been passed down? Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled and nodded. He said, yes, one is called the 4-season cycle technique, which is the most suitable technique for cultivators with the wood attribute Luan bloodline. The other is called the virtuous turtle breathing technique, which is the most suitable technique for cultivators with the water attribute turtle bloodline. The third technique is called the frost cicada technique, which is the most suitable technique for cultivators with the ice attribute cicada bloodline. After Jiang Tianlin finished introducing the 3 techniques, the other 4 spiritual masters were overjoyed. It must be known that Jinling had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, and there were many techniques passed down within the sect. However, there were only 6 complete techniques that could be practiced to the late Dharma stage. Apart from Jinling's 5 true inheritances, only spiritual master Liang Xianfeng had found the Lin High wave listening technique in the Zhongxian cave abode, which had been passed down to the late Dharma stage for Lu Tianling and Laozu. However, now that he had obtained 3 of them, the complete inheritance of Jinling's techniques had suddenly increased to 8. It must be known that these 3 techniques were passed down by the Yingtian sect, so there was no doubt about the authenticity of these techniques. Otherwise, they would definitely not have been kept in the Yingtian sect's last and most important inheritance hall. How could this not cause everyone present to be inexplicably excited? The breadth and completeness of a sect's inheritance not only meant that the inheritance was widely accepted by the public, but at the same time, it also meant that more and more talented cultivators could continuously emerge because of the complete inheritance. This was the root of the rise and prosperity of a sect. Chapter 643. Of course, these were not the only things that Lu Ping had gained from the Clearstream cave abode. Jiang Tianlin, Laozu, and the others were naturally aware of this as well. However, these 3 complete cultivation manuals had undoubtedly greatly strengthened their weakest shortcoming for the rising Jinling. Seeing that the seniors had calmed down from the joy of obtaining these 3 cultivation manuals, Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "Martial uncles and martial uncles, this disciple still has some news regarding the Yingtian dojo to report. I'm going to ask you even if you don't say it." Jiang Tianlin, Laozu smiled and said, "You were able to obtain the Clearstream cave abode, and Clearstream Laozu had obviously entered the Yingtian dojo before. Then, he must have some information regarding the Yingtian dojo." This time Jiang Tianlin Laozu did not guess correctly. However, he would never have thought that Lu Ping had already entered the Yingtian dojo twice. Lu Ping chuckled and said, "This disciple has already found the Yingtian dojo and entered it twice. Today, when this disciple discovered the inheritance imprint left behind by the martial uncles and martial uncles, I had just come out of the Yingtian dojo." What? This time the spiritual masters of Jinling finally cried out in surprise. Even Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at Lu Ping in surprise. Spiritual Master Xianchan asked again in disbelief, "You really found the Yingtian dojo and entered it twice?" Lu Ping smiled and took out the grayish clay pot mystic treasure. Then he told the seniors about how he found the Yingtian dojo. Lu Ping smiled bitterly and helplessly as he looked at the gazes the seniors were giving him. Then he said, "Martial uncles and martial uncles, this is what it looks like. In the entire Yingtian dojo, the areas covered by the seals are distributed in a concentric circle pattern. The outermost area is covered by 3 7-colored seals, while the rest is covered by 2 5-colored seals." It was only then that the crowd regained their senses from Lu Ping's narration. Then they looked at enlightened Master Xianchan, Zhenling sect's only grandmaster in array formations. Other than Lu Ping, no one else was more qualified to speak than her. Spiritual Master Xianchan pondered for a moment and said, "I heard that you fought to a draw with Blue Sea Sect's Zhangxi outside of Frost Island?" Lu Ping scratched his head. Although he didn't know why Spiritual Master Xianchan would ask about Frost Island, he still answered, "That time, this disciple borrowed the profound ice formation that martial uncle laid down." Spiritual Master Xianchan did not seem satisfied with Lu Ping's answer and continued to ask, "If you had a fair fight with him, what would the outcome be?" Lu Ping saw that Spiritual Master Xianchan was asking in detail, as if the importance of this matter was no less than breaking the rainbow restrictions in Yingtian dojo. Lu Ping pondered for a moment and said carefully, "If that Zhangxi did not hide too much of his strength that day, disciple is confident that even if I was not his match, I would still be able to tangle with him. At the very least, it would not be a problem for me to escape unscathed." Lu Ping naturally held back when he said this. Among his trump cards, at least the 7 Thunder Treasures Calabash and the Great Genshin Formation had not been exposed. Moreover, during these days, Lu Ping had obtained 3 spirit-nurturing grade artifacts and his strength had increased. If he fought with Zhang Xi again, the outcome was still uncertain. Even so, when everyone heard Lu Ping personally confirm it, their faces showed more or less surprise. Zhang Xi was an expert who had condensed a gold core, while Lu Ping was only a third-generation disciple who had just advanced to the late core forging stage. After a flash of surprise passed through spiritual master Xian Chen's face, he began to calm down, as if he was calculating something. The surrounding spiritual masters, including Zhang Tianlin and Lao Zu, did not make a sound to disturb him. This time, although Jinling was led by Zhang Tianlin, there was no doubt that the commander would be spiritual master Xian Chan, the formation grandmaster. Unfortunately, Jinling also had an expert who was famous for breaking restrictions, spiritual master Liang Xianfeng. He was currently in seclusion and was at the most critical moment of breaking through to the transcendent stage. Otherwise, Jinling's lineup in Yingtian Dojo would be even stronger. After about the time it took to drink a cup of tea, spiritual master Xian Chan finally let out a long sigh of relief. Beside him, Zhang Tianlin and Lao Zu said with a smile, "Junior sister, you have a result. This time, what strategy should we adopt to gain the upper hand in the competition with Lao Zu?" Spiritual master Xian Chan nodded at Zhang Tianlin and Lao Zu, but he did not answer first. Instead, he turned to Lu Ping and asked again, "Do you know why I did not lead you into the formation immediately?" Lu Ping thought to himself that it was indeed spiritual master Xian Chen's idea to stop him outside the formation. However, he still replied with a bitter smile, "It seems that Uncle Master wanted to test me. However, I have disappointed Uncle Master. Uncle Master's formation is mysterious, and I cannot break it." Spiritual master Xian Chan nodded. Just as he was about to say something, spiritual master Xian Chan said, "Let me explain." Lu Ping looked at spiritual master Xian Chan with some surprise, only to see that spiritual master Xian Chan had a regretful expression on his face. He said, "Martial nephew Lu is now the 3rd alchemy grandmaster of our sect. I believe that you have already seen that I, Uncle Master Lu, am seriously injured. I am afraid that I can only use 20 to 30% of my strength. I am no longer able to participate in the Yingtian Dojo. Previously, I was still feeling a little regretful that there was one less person participating in the opening of the Yingtian Dojo. Now that martial nephew Lu has arrived, and with martial nephew Lu's strength, which is originally above mine, I believe that our sect will gain more from the Yingtian Dojo." Just as Lu Ping was about to speak, he saw that spiritual master Xian Chan had a regretful expression on his face. However, he still took out a jade box from the storage magic tool on his waist and passed it to Zhang Tianlin Lao Zu. He said, "From what martial nephew Lu said, every restriction in the Yingtian Dojo is at least 7-colored. In that case, only restriction-breaking talismans of 3 colors and above will have some effect on the restriction-breaking talismans. In this box are the restriction-breaking talismans of 3 colors and above that Master and I created. Among them, there are 6 3-colored talismans, 3 4-colored talismans, and only 2 5-colored talismans made by Master. Senior brother Zhang, please use them carefully and bring back the greatest harvest for our sect." Zhang Tianlin Lao Zu sighed inwardly. He took the jade box from spiritual master Xian Chen's hands and said, "Junior sister, please be at ease." Spiritual master Xian Chan was the #1 talisman crafting genius in Jinling. Currently, he was second only to Tianshui Lao Zu in Jinling. This was also the main reason why spiritual master Xian Chan was able to become Tianshui Lao Zu's disciple and become the vice pavilion master of the talisman crafting pavilion. Otherwise, with spiritual master Xian Chen's ordinary talent, without Tianshui Lao Zu's care, her cultivation would at most stop at the middle stage of the core forging realm. How could she have reached the 8th layer of the core forging realm? She even wanted to take a peek at the transcendence realm. Originally, Tianshui Lao Zu had helped spiritual master Xian Chan obtain a spot to participate in the opening of the Yingtian Dojo. She hoped that spiritual master Xian Chan would be able to find some opportunities in the dojo. However, no matter how much she thought about it, she never expected that spiritual master Xian Chan would be heavily injured after arriving in Middle Earth. In order to not affect the competition between Jinling and the other sects, she could only hand over the opportunity to Lu Ping. At this moment, Lu Ping finally found an opportunity to ask, How did martial uncle Xianchun get injured? Did he consume a healing pill? Is there any way this disciple can help? Spiritual Master Xianchun laughed bitterly. Although I've heard that the situation in Middle-earth's cultivation world isn't good, I always thought that Middle-earth's cultivation world is the holy land of the entire cultivation world. Once those large and powerful sects make a move, the situation would definitely be under control. However, I never expected that the situation in Middle-earth would deteriorate to such an extent. Not only did the Azura race and demonic cultivator race appear at the same time, from the looks of it, the two races seem to have joined hands to attack a large sect like Blue Space Sect. What? Lu Ping's expression changed. Over the years, as his status in the cultivation world rose, he learned more and more about some of the secrets of the cultivation world. Lu Ping had seen the Azura race several times and had even fought against them. Although Lu Ping had never seen the demonic cultivators, he had heard from Tianqin Laozu that demonic cultivators had already appeared in Carefree Sect's Fallen Archipelago in the East Sea. However, Lu Ping could never have imagined that in Middle-earth, a holy land of cultivation where famous sects and clans gathered, the Azura race and demonic cultivator race had already become arrogant enough to attack a large sect. Large sects were places that the entire North Sea's cultivation world looked up to. It could be seen that the situation in Middle-earth was far more serious than what Lu Ping had heard from the East Sea. Once this great calamity affected the North Sea's cultivation world, Lu Ping could no longer imagine how Jinling would be able to withstand it. The Azura race and the demonic cultivator race were the two most mysterious races in the cultivation world. They were also the races that caused the entire cultivation world to pale at the mention of them. The Azura race would always appear in every great calamity in the cultivation world, but the demonic cultivator race did not appear very frequently. However, once the demonic cultivator race appeared in a great calamity, the cultivation world would often suffer double the losses. The origin and appearance of these two races had always been a mystery. They always appeared abruptly without any pattern, and every time they appeared, it would set off a bloodbath that affected the entire cultivation world. Every time they appeared, it would also lead to a change in the overall situation of the cultivation world. Therefore, every time these two races appeared, the entire cultivation world would call it a great calamity. Although the arrival of each great calamity in the cultivation world did not follow any pattern, it basically maintained an interval of more than 1,000 years. This was also the reason why the oldest of the first generation of Jinling practitioners, Celestial Laozu, only had a lifespan of more than 900 years. Lu Ping had long suspected this because Dharma adepts had at least a lifespan of 800 years. After advancing to the mid-Dharma stage, a practitioner's lifespan could even extend up to 1,200 years, and late Dharma adepts could even reach 1,500 years. Jinling had a legacy of tens of thousands of years. Although it had not grown into a large sect in the past, the legacy of Dharma adepts had never been cut off. So why was it that there was no Dharma adept of the earlier generation above Celestial Laozu? Laozu was still alive? Originally, Lu Ping suspected that the Dharma adepts of Jinling, who were even older than the first generation of practitioners, might be living in seclusion somewhere. However, as Lu Ping's cultivation and status increased, he also knew more about Jinling's secrets. He also knew that there were indeed no older practitioners above Celestial Laozu. After that, Lu Ping had asked his teacher, Lu Tianling, about this question. Only then did he know that there were 6 Dharma adepts in the previous generation of practitioners, including Celestial Laozu, and 2 of them were mid-Dharma adepts. It was just that later on, when the great calamity of the cultivation world spread to the North Sea, those 6 Laozu protected Jinling against the attack of the Shura clan. 4 Laozu died in battle, and the remaining 2 Laozu's lifespan was also greatly reduced after the calamity. Jinling's legacy was at its most dangerous moment. Fortunately, at that time the calamity had just ended, and the various sects in the North Sea had suffered heavy losses. Everyone was licking their wounds and recuperating, so Jinling managed to get through this most difficult period. After barely managing to cultivate 4 Dharma adepts, namely Tianxiang, Tianshui, Tianfan and Tiankong, these 2 older generation Jinling Laozus fell one after another, and Jinling finally achieved the Dharma adept's legacy. After that, the 2 Laozus Tianjiang and Tianxiang also advanced to the Dharma stage. Jinling's strength also recovered to the strength before the calamity, But Xianling sect was not able to recover as quickly as Jinling after the calamity, and gradually, the gap between them and Jinling was shortened. Although Lu Ping had fought with the Azura clan and killed many Azuras, he knew that the Azuras he met were only the weakest of the Azura clan. They were minor repairs Azuras that had not yet fully matured. A fully matured Azura would have the strength of a late core forging cultivator, and the great Azuras of the Azura clan were all existences that could rival Dharma adepts. Looking at Lu Ping's shocked expression, Zhang Tianlin Laozu explained, Songyu sect is the destination of the East Sea's Purple Talisman Pavilion's ultra-long-distance teleporter. This time it was directly attacked by the Azura clan and the Xioma clan. Although they were repelled, Songyu sect suffered heavy losses this time. At that time we had just teleported to Songyu sect when we saw the battle between the two sides. We had no choice but to help Songyu sect. Your uncle Xianju was ambushed by an Azura at that time and was severely injured. Lu Ping's expression was solemn as he nodded and said, Uncle Xianju, have you taken any healing elixirs? Xianju Zhenren smiled bitterly and said, I've already taken the Bell Cauldron pill refined by Master Fornax. This time Master Fornax prepared a Bell Cauldron pill for each of us just in case. I didn't expect that I would waste this healing pill before even entering Yingtian Dojo. The Zhongding pill was a healing elixir that Tianlin Laozu had relied on to become a Grandmaster alchemist. Although the difficulty of refining this elixir was only at the level of a half-step Dharma adept, its effects were even effective on Dharma adepts. The only downside was that the spirit herbs needed to refine this elixir were extremely precious, even more precious than the spirit herbs needed to refine normal Dharma adepts. At this time Zhang Tianlin Laozu said, Your uncle Xianju's injuries were quite serious. At that time it was life-threatening. Although she used a Zhongding pill to alleviate her injuries, I'm afraid that she will need several years to recover. We originally wanted to give our Zhongding pills to her, but she thought that this trip to the central region was fraught with danger, so she refused to take our Zhongding pills. Just as Xuanju Daoist master was about to say something, Ancestor Zhang Tianlin raised his hand and stopped him. But this time there's always a way out. I didn't expect you to be one step ahead of us. With an alchemy grandmaster like you here, I think your uncle Xuanju Daoist master won't have to worry about our Bell Cauldron pill. I heard from your uncle Liang Xianfeng that you were able to refine the Bell Cauldron pill when you were just at the early stage of the core forging realm. Zhang Tianlin Laozu's words were said to Lu Ping, but in fact it was also said to Xianju Zhenren. At this time, Xianju Zhenren said, Although nephew Lu has become an alchemist grandmaster, the spirit herbs used to refine a Zhongding pill are too precious. Nephew Lu may not have all the precious spirit herbs needed to refine the Zhongding pill. After taking a Zhongding pill, my life is no longer in danger. All I need is a few more years to recuperate. Senior brothers and junior sisters, you should keep the Zhongding pills for yourself in case you need them. Moreover, this time I was seriously injured. My cultivation foundation has been shaken, and there is almost no hope of advancing to the Dharma stage. What's the difference between recovering 2 years later and earlier? At this time, Lu Ping had basically understood the cause of the matter. The biggest reason why Xianju Zhenren refused to take the Zhongding pill was because he had no hope of advancing to the Dharma stage. Lu Ping thought about it and took out an ancient book from his storage ring. This ancient book was made of the same material as the previous 3 complete ancient books, but there were many missing parts in this ancient book. It was obviously incomplete. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Lu Ping handed the incomplete ancient book to Xianju Zhenren, who had a suspicious look on his face. He said, Uncle, take a look at this ancient book first. Xianju Zhenren did not know what Lu Ping was up to, so he opened the incomplete ancient book in his hand and began to browse. When Daoist Xianju flipped to the first page of the remnant book, he was stunned for a moment before his expression turned serious. However, as he flipped through the remnant book, his expression first became one of exuberance, then ecstasy. Soon after, his expression became solemn. It was obvious that he was deeply attracted by the contents of the remnant book. After a long time, Xianju Zhenren flipped to the last page of the incomplete ancient book. Then, as if remembering something, he raised his head and looked at Lu Ping, who had a relaxed smile on his face. Then he smiled apologetically at the others and said, To me, this incomplete ancient book is 100 times more precious than the 3 complete cultivation methods. Seeing the puzzled expressions on everyone's faces, Xianju Zhenren asked Lu Ping, "This ancient book is also from the Yingtian dojo?" Lu Ping nodded solemnly and said, "Uncle, this ancient book is not complete. I think there are other parts in the dojo. If you can collect them all, even if your cultivation foundation is damaged, there is still hope for you to advance to the Dharma stage." Xianju Zhenren touched the incomplete ancient book in his hand and said with emotion, "I don't just need the other parts. Just this half of the incomplete ancient book can make up for a huge flaw in my cultivation." Xianchan Zhenren asked curiously, "Senior sister, what kind of ancient book is it that you value it so much?" Xianju Zhenren nodded at Lu Ping, then handed the ancient book in his hand to Zhang Tianlin Laozu, who was beside him, and said, "This half of the ancient book is related to the creation and cultivation of talismans in the Yingtian dojo sect. I am a talisman cultivator like the Purple Talisman Pavilion, but my sex inheritance is not complete. Furthermore, I don't have teacher Tian Shui's talent to make up for the flaws in my cultivation method. Originally, there was not much hope for me to advance to the Dharma stage. However, this half of the ancient book can help me make up for many of the flaws in my cultivation. It will be very beneficial for my future cultivation." Seeing everyone's joyful faces, Xianju Zhenren finally smiled. She continued, "However, this is not the only important thing. In this half of the ancient book, there is a complete inheritance of a type of precious talisman. This inheritance may not be complete even in some large sections." This time it was Xiansu Zhenren who could not hold back his curiosity. He hurriedly asked, "What inheritance is it?" Before Xianju Zhenren could speak, Zhang Tianlin, who was flipping through the half of the ancient book, gasped and said, "It is actually the complete inheritance of the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman." Xiansu Zhenren opened his mouth wide and said, "What? Restriction-breaking talisman? Or the seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman?" Zhang Tianlin Laozu closed the ancient book in his hand and said to Lu Ping, "I want to bring this half of the original ancient book along with the 3 complete cultivation books back to the sect. If you need it, you can make a copy of it first." Lu Ping smiled and said, "Disciple originally wanted to hand these ancient books over to the sect. I have already made a copy of it." Zhang Tianlin Laozu was obviously satisfied with Lu Ping's attitude. He said, "Martial nephew Lu, this is only a small harvest from the Yingtian dojo. It seems that the harvest from the Yingtian dojo this time is really worth looking forward to." Everyone smiled and nodded. Lu Ping could see the hidden excitement in their eyes. Zhang Tianlin Laozu handed a jade bottle to Xianju Zhenren and said, "Junior martial sister, you won't reject this bell cauldron pill this time, right?" Xianju Zhenren was still hesitating when Lu Ping said, "Martial uncle, with your current injuries, it is best for you to take another bell cauldron pill. Not only will it greatly shorten the recovery time, but it will also minimize the possibility of your injuries affecting your cultivation foundation. As for the bell cauldron pill, you don't have to worry. Disciple has collected a lot of spiritual herbs and can start refining them immediately. Moreover, Disciple has another matter to report. It is about a huge spiritual herb garden in a secret realm of the Yingtian sect. However, this time only martial uncle Jiang can do it." Xianju Zhenren's eyes lit up when he heard Lu Ping's words. Zhang Tianlin Laozu had already handed over the bell cauldron pill to Lu Ping. Then he smiled and asked, "Oh, there is a secret realm of the Yingtian sect in the Yingtian mountain range? Do I have to do it? Tell me, what kind of good news have you brought us?" Chapter 644. Lu Ping was about to tell Zhang Tianlin Laozu about the secret realm he discovered in the waterfall pool. But Zhang Tianlin Laozu seemed to have sensed something and reached out to stop Lu Ping. Lu Ping sensed that Zhang Tianlin Laozu's divine will was probing outside the array, so he quickly stopped talking. At the same time, he also sent out his own divine will, but to no avail. Just as Lu Ping was puzzled, a few rays of light suddenly appeared in Lu Ping's divine will. Lu Ping suddenly realized that his divine will might be comparable to that of ordinary Dharma adepts, but compared to Zhang Tianlin Laozu, who was at the early Dharma stage, there was still a huge gap. Zhang Tianlin Laozu glanced at Lu Ping, then smiled at the people beside him and said, "We have guests. Let's go out and greet them." At this time, perfected Master Xian Xin's expression also changed. Clearly, He had also noticed the arrival of the rays of light. Immediately after, Perfected Master Xian Su also noticed something, but Perfected Master Xian Chan and Perfected Master Xian Ju were the last to notice. Jiang Tianlin Laozu nodded at Perfected Master Xian Chan. Perfected Master Xian Chan waved his sleeve, and the array at the bottom of the cliff suddenly opened. A hearty laugh came from afar. Martial nephew Jiang, you are so fast. Sa Ming and I have just arrived. Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at the rays of light descending from the sky. After the rays of light dissipated, 4 cultivators walked out. The 2 in front were the Jade Sword Sect's Tong Jian Laozu and the Chongming Sect's Sa Ming Laozu, whom Lu Ping had met on Frost Island. The 2 behind them were at the 9th level of the Core Forging Realm. Obviously, they were the late Core Forging Realm cultivators from the 2 sects who were participating in the Yingtian Dojo. Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "Seniors, you are not late." Then, he turned to the 2 late-stage Core Forging cultivators behind Laozu and smiled. "Brother Hua, Brother Ziyang, how are you?" These 2 late Core Forging Realm cultivators were obviously familiar with Jiang Tianlin and the others. After exchanging greetings for a while, Jiang Tianlin and Laozu led them into the array formation. Tong Jian Laozu looked at the 5 late Core Forging cultivators behind Jiang Tianlin and Laozu. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Martial nephew Jiang, this time, your sect will be the leader of our 2 sections. However, we agreed that your sect can only have 4 late Core Forging cultivators. How come there are 5 now?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw that the 3 Laozu had also noticed this, but Tong Jian Laozu was straightforward and said it first. Ancestor Jiang Tianlin sighed and said, "The 2 of you have also come from the Middle Earth, so you must have some understanding of the situation in the Middle Earth." To be honest, this time junior sister Xian Ju, junior sister Xian Chan, junior brother Xian San, and junior brother Xian Su came with us. However, after we left the Blue Space Sect, we encountered the Azura clan and the Azura clan joining hands to attack the Blue Space sect protecting formation. We just happened to be there, so we could only help the Blue Space Sect. Unexpectedly, junior sister Xianju was ambushed and heavily injured by an Azura during the battle. Jiang Tianlin Laozu recounted their encounter to the 4, and finally said, "We didn't expect Martial Nephew Lu to be traveling nearby, so we used our sex inheritance imprint to find Martial Nephew Lu, and let him participate in the opening of Yingtian Dojo in place of junior sister Xianju." Sa Ming Laozu nodded and said, "So that's how it is. Although we saw many traces of the Azura clan and Azura clan wreaking havoc along the way, we never thought that these 2 clans would dare to attack a large sect together. If Martial Nephew Jiang hadn't seen it with his own eyes, we wouldn't have believed that the situation in the Middle Earth has deteriorated to this extent." The 3 Laozu only briefly exchanged information about the situation in the Middle Earth, then returned their attention to the Yingtian Dojo in front of them. Sa Ming Laozu pondered for a moment, then said, "When we were rushing over here just now, we met Misty Water Pavilion's Yan Mu. According to her, it seems that the Blue Sea sect arrived 1 or 2 days earlier than the other sects this time." Bronze Sword Laozu also interrupted. Not only that, during the previous battle on Frost Island, the Linggu sect did not send any Dharma adepts. We originally thought that the Linggu sect had secretly sided with your sect, but unexpectedly, it seems that the Linggu sect and Xianling sect have gotten into a conflict. At this time, the Linggu sect's early Dharma adept, Ling Nan, has brought a disciple and is with Dongguo of the Blue Sea sect. It seems that these 2 sects are going to join forces. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression did not change, but his tone was solemn as he said, "It seems that the Blue Sea sect is not simple. Back then, Qingjian Laozu's identity was first discovered by the Blue Sea sect, and then he was put under house arrest for a period of time. It is hard to say that the Blue Sea sect did not obtain some information about the Yingtian Dojo from Qingjian Laozu. Moreover, ever since the sects merged, the Blue Sea sect has been rather aggressive, and their aura is even a level higher than Xianling sect. At this time, it is reasonable that the Linggu sect has turned to the Blue Sea sect." Jiang Tianlin Laozu and the 2 Laozu discussed some cooperation plans in the Yingtian Dojo. At the same time, they also revealed some of the information that Lu Ping had about the Yingtian Dojo to them. Just this alone was enough to make the 2 Laozu turn pale with fright at first, but then they were overjoyed. After sending off the 2 Laozu, Jiang Tianlin Laozu then turned to Lu Ping and said, It seems that the situation is more complicated than we thought. Once the matter of the Ingtian dojo is over, I am afraid that we will have to return to the North Sea as soon as possible. We will have to use that teleportation portal of yours." Lu Ping nodded, indicating that he understood. After diving directly into Lao Zu's rocky cave abode from the Inghe River, Perfected Xian Su and the others were astonished by the ingenuity of the cave abode's construction. Du Shi, who had recovered from her injuries, brought along the somewhat confused Du Jialua and carried the little fox demon, who still seemed to be on the verge of death. Her heart raced as she watched Lu Ping and the others enter one after another. The aura that these people exuded made her feel extremely terrified. She could sense that even if she had encountered these people at her peak, she would most likely have fled in defeat before she had possessed the body. That middle-aged scholar, who had a suave figure and had glanced at her, could probably kill her with just a wave of his hand. After Zhang Tianlin Laozu entered the cave abode, he inadvertently glanced at Du Shi and frowned slightly. He said to Lu Ping, "Possession by a demonic cultivator?" Lu Ping did not expect Zhang Tianlin Laozu to discover Du Shi's secret so easily. However, he did not appear too surprised. These things would have to be reported to the sect sooner or later, so he said, "Yes." At this time, Perfected Xian Su and the others also heard the conversation between Zhang Tianlin Laozu and Lu Ping. They all looked at Du Shi strangely. Possession was widely known in the cultivation world, but they were more or less surprised to see a successful cultivator, and a demonic cultivator at that. However, compared to Du Shi, who had possessed the body of a demonic cultivator, Zhang Tianlin Laozu's interest was quickly attracted by Du Jialua, who was standing beside Du Shi. Zhang Tianlin Laozu's gaze was a little strange. He looked at Lu Ping beside him and said, "You picked this kid up. What are your plans?" Lu Ping was now much more immune to Zhang Tianlin Laozu's ability to easily see through many of Lu Ping's thoughts and secrets. Hearing this, he only said, "Prepare to activate the blood meridian ceremony, then we will see." "Oh." Zhang Tianlin Laozu nodded in relief and said, "That's for the best. If the blood meridian ceremony is successful, even if his talent is not too good, as long as he is willing to work hard with his physical body, he should be able to break through to the Dharma stage." Looking at Zhang Tianlin Laozu's relieved expression, Lu Ping felt a little strange in his heart. Was this Uncle Master afraid that he would refine Du Jialua into a human core? This thought flashed in Lu Ping's mind. Immediately after, he heard Zhang Tianlin Laozu's slightly curious voice ask, "Kid, are you thinking of accepting a disciple?" Lu Ping was startled and said, "Whether this kid can activate the blood meridian or not is another matter. I only plan to recommend him to our sect after the blood meridian ceremony is successfully activated. However, if he wants to be my disciple, it will depend on his ability." At this time, Master Xian San sighed and said, "Now that a large number of our sect's third-generation disciples have advanced to the core forging stage, they have the qualifications to accept disciples. Among the second-generation disciples, there are very few who accept disciples anymore. However, as the undisputed number one disciple of the third generation, you Celestial Water, have always been unwilling to accept disciples. This has already caused many seniors in the sect who are concerned about the inheritance of the sect to be dissatisfied. Many of our sect's disciples have also been complaining that the requirements for you to accept disciples are too high. If it wasn't for Senior Sister Tianling who has been blocking this matter, I'm afraid you would have been annoyed to death by them." Lu Ping was stunned for a moment and said, "There's actually such a thing? I didn't know about it." Zhang Tianlin Laozu said, "It doesn't matter. It's normal for the requirements to be high. The key is whether you are willing or not. Your master and I are not afraid that you will accept disciples late, but that you will not accept disciples at all. After all, you have only cultivated for 100 years. There is still a long road ahead of you. It's better to accept disciples later and have more time to cultivate. However, if you don't accept disciples now, even if you leave behind an inheritance, it will not be as good as you teaching your disciples step by step. This way, the essence of your inheritance will be better inherited." After settling all the seniors of the sect in the cave residence, Master Xianju had already started to recuperate from his injuries in seclusion. At the same time, he began to study the incomplete talisman crafting manual in his hands. Master Xian Su and Master Xian San, on the other hand, were recuperating and preparing to find the Yingtian dojo tomorrow after meeting up with the other sections. However, the actual location of the Yingtian dojo was already known by Lu Ping. When the time came, everyone would just be putting on a show. The most important thing was to be able to obtain as many valuable inheritances after entering the Yingtian dojo. On the other hand, enlightened Master Xianchun filled his room with all kinds of instruments and mystic instruments that Lu Ping recognized and didn't recognize. Among them, Lu Ping had seen many of them at Hu Lily's place before. They were obviously important tools that enlightened Master Xianchun was using to decipher the seals. After settling everyone, Lu Ping and Zhang Tianlin Laozu left the cave residence again. Lu Ping threw the cloud light 5 elements robe, and a cloud that was exactly the same as the white cloud in the sky slowly rose. Then it merged with the white cloud floating in the sky and disappeared. Chapter 645. After Lu Ping told Zhang Tianlin Laozu about the secret realm of Yingtian sect that he had discovered and deduced that the secret realm was most likely a paradise artifact of Yingtian sect, Zhang Tianlin Laozu had originally planned to take some time out to investigate this secret realm after the Yingtian dojo was completely opened. However, after Lu Ping told Zhang Tianlin Laozu about the news that he had discovered a medium-sized spirit stone mine in the Yingtian dojo, Zhang Tianlin Laozu could no longer remain calm no matter how much effort he had put into maintaining his composure. After Lu Ping had settled Jinling and the others in the cave dwelling, he urged Lu Ping to bring him to the direction of the waterfall as soon as possible. Lu Ping had a direct understanding of the significance of a medium-sized spirit stone mine after the battle on Frost Island. Zhang Tianlin Laozu had never imagined that Lu Ping would be so lucky as to find another mine. Unfortunately, the location of the mine meant that Jinling would not be able to concentrate a large amount of manpower here to mine. Therefore, there was only one way left, and that was to move this medium-sized spirit stone mine as a whole. The biggest reason why the medium-sized spirit stone mine on Frost Island could not be moved was because it was too far away from Jinling, and the traction formation had consumed a lot of energy. Even if they could barely move it, the earth would shake and the mountains would shake during the process of moving it, making it impossible for this spirit stone mine to be kept secret. If the spirit stone mine in the Yingtian dojo was moved outside of the dojo, it would definitely cause a huge commotion and attract the attention of the 3 sects in the Yingtian mountain range. At the same time, it would also attract the attention of the cultivators of the North Sea sects who had already snuck into the mountain range. Moreover, moving the spirit stone mine outside of the dojo would not be able to guarantee its safety. Therefore, there was only one way to move the spirit stone mine, and that was to draw the spirit stone mine into another space, just like how he had drawn the spirit stone mine into the space of Yingtian dojo. In other words, this space had to be a spatial artifact. In other words, it had to be a paradise artifact. This way, Lu Ping's House of Gold would naturally be useless, and Zhang Tianlin Laozu had to retrieve the spatial artifact in the pool under the waterfall. Zhang Tianlin Laozu followed Lu Ping and landed in front of the pool under the waterfall. Even though he had already learned about the wonders of the secret realm hidden in the pool from Lu Ping, when Zhang Tianlin Laozu was unable to find any clues about the secret realm on the surface of the pool, he still revealed an expression of shock. According to Lu Ping's instructions, Zhang Tianlin Laozu pushed towards the pool, and a huge pit that seemed to reach the bottom of the pool immediately appeared on the surface of the pool. The pool water formed a flight of stairs that led straight to the bottom of the pool. Zhang Tianlin Laozu stepped on the stairs formed by the flowing water and walked to the bottom of the pool. Then, the huge pit immediately closed up, and the pool returned to its original calm state. Lu Ping stood on the shore beside the pool. After the pool returned to its original state, he still stood there calmly and waited quietly. After about half an hour, Lu Ping suddenly realized that although the waterfall that was rushing down from the cliff was still making a loud roar, there was no longer a huge splash after the waterfall fell into the pool. The entire pool suddenly became strangely calm like a mirror. Lu Ping's expression changed. He saw a figure suddenly break out of the calm pool, but there was not a single drop of water on him. It was as if the surface of the pool was just a broken illusion. After Zhang Tianlin Laozu came out of the pool, he floated above the pool. Lu Ping could tell from his rather serious expression that it would not be easy to recover this spatial magic treasure. At this moment, Lu Ping saw Zhang Tianlin Laozu raise his hands, and the originally calm surface of the pool suddenly shook again. Every time Jiang Tianlin Laozu raised his hands, it seemed that he had to put in a lot of effort. However, his hands were still firmly raised. As his hands moved, the surface of the water shook more and more violently. The water slapped against the shore, creating 3-foot-high waves and a loud sound. At this moment, Lu Ping could already see that there seemed to be something under the pool that was being pulled out by Jiang Tianlin Laozu's spell. The violent shaking of the pool had already spread to the shore. Lu Ping could feel the ground under his feet trembling more and more clearly, and he couldn't help but frown. He had expected that recovering this spatial magic treasure would cause a huge commotion, so he didn't do it himself. Instead, he let Jiang Tianlin Laozu do it. This was to minimize the commotion during the recovery process, so that it wouldn't be discovered by the various sects in the Yingtian mountain range and the North Sea sect Laozu. However, he still didn't expect that even if it was Jiang Tianlin Laozu, it would still cause such a huge commotion. As the ground shook more and more violently, a low but distant rumbling sound gradually came from the ground. Jiang Tianlin Laozu also seemed to realize that something was wrong. If this continued, it would definitely attract the attention of others. At this time, the Yingtian mountain range could be considered a gathering of experts. Including Laozu from the Yinghe sect and the other 2 sects, there were at least 13 Dharma adepts gathered here. Once someone discovered the commotion here, they would definitely try to snatch it. At that time, the ownership of this spatial magic treasure would be uncertain. At this moment, Lu Ping saw that Jiang Tianlin Laozu's hand was still in the air, but his other hand was hitting his chest. A clear chirp suddenly sounded, and a giant bird suddenly appeared in the air behind Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Its beautiful feathers brought with them rays of spirit light in the sky. Lu Ping was very familiar with the image of this giant bird. It was 80% to 90% similar to the true form of the wooden phoenix that Luan Yu had revealed before she had transformed. This giant bird was obviously the Dharma power that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had formed after he had advanced to the Dharma stage. The giant bird raised its head to the sky and chirped. Following Jiang Tianlin Laozu's finger, it circled elegantly in the sky and dived into the surging pool. With the help of the Dharma power, waves instantly surged in the pool. Because of the strong shaking of the surrounding mountains, many rocks fell from the mountains. Lu Ping knew that this was not good. He saw a wave come from the pool, and a giant bronze mirror that was the same size as the pool slowly rose from the water. Lu Ping could even see a giant wooden phoenix flying in the mirror. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw the bronze mirror rise from the pool, his expression immediately relaxed. However, he did not dare to delay at all. He continuously made a few hand seals, and waves of green essential essence were injected into the giant bronze mirror. As the bronze mirror rose, its size continued to shrink. When the bronze mirror rose to the height where Jiang Tianlin Laozu was floating in the air, the grotto heaven treasure that contained a space shrank to the size of a palm. Jiang Tianlin Laozu held it in his hand. Lu Ping was overjoyed, and his body also floated into the air. Just as he was about to congratulate Jiang Tianlin Laozu for receiving a grotto heaven treasure, he saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu look behind him with a serious expression and say, "Let's go." Lu Ping's expression changed, and he did not have time to say anything. A small boat appeared under his feet, and he quickly disappeared into the horizon. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the direction that Laozu Jiang Tianlin had turned to look at. "May I ask which fellow has come to the Yingtian mountain range?" "Old man, I'm from the Yinghe sect. Can you stop and have a chat?" Lu Ping had already used the multicolored cloud-like clothes to cover the boat. The light that Lu Ping had left behind could no longer be seen in the sky, but it was still very difficult to hide from Dharma idol Laozu, who had already been discovered. Jiang Tianlin Laozu stood on the boat, still holding the bronze mirror in his hand. However, at this moment, he was clearly at a critical juncture in his control of the grotto heaven treasure. All his attention was focused on the bronze mirror in his hand. Helpless, Lu Ping could only use all his strength to escape. He did not hope to escape from Long River Laozu, but he hoped that he would not be able to catch up to him in an instant. That way, he could buy time for Jiang Tianlin Laozu to refine the bronze mirror. In the sky above the sparkling pool, a fair-skinned cultivator in his 50s suddenly appeared. He looked at the pool under his feet with a complicated expression. This person was Long River Laozu of the Yinghe sect. The Yingtian mountain range had been explored countless times by the cultivators of the Yinghe sect in the thousands of years since the Yinghe sect had been destroyed. Even he himself had explored the Yingtian mountain range many times, hoping to find some of the mystic realms that the Yinghe sect had hidden in the mountain range. This waterfall pool was one of the most scenic spots in the Yingtian mountain range. Almost every cultivator from the Yinghe sect had come here to admire this waterfall that seemed to fall from the 9 heavens. However, a treasure of the Yinghe sect was hidden in the pool under this waterfall. Over the thousands of years, countless cultivators had not discovered the abnormality in the pool. Although Long River Laozu was curious as to what kind of treasure it was and how it could fool the countless cultivators who came and went, the person who had collected the treasure was obviously a Dharma adept. Furthermore, it seemed that the process of collecting the treasure was not easy. Naturally, this treasure was not to be underestimated. How could Long River Laozu be satisfied with this? For thousands of years, the Yinghe sect and the other 2 sects had relied on the scattered inheritances left behind by the Yinghe sect to develop to their current scale. In the minds of Long River Laozu and the others, they were the true inheritors of the Yinghe sect's inheritance. Therefore, all the treasures left behind by the Yinghe sect in the Yingtian mountain range should naturally belong to the 3 sections. The person just now was obviously not from any of the 3 sections. That meant that he was a foreign cultivator. This foreign cultivator had obtained the treasures left behind by the Yinghe sect. From Long River Laozu's point of view, this was equivalent to stealing the treasures of the Yinghe sect. How could Long River Laozu swallow this insult? The person who had stolen the treasure was obviously of similar cultivation level to him. Long River Laozu did not have the confidence that he could win. After thinking about it, Long River Laozu could only reluctantly create 2 voids in front of him. Then, he placed 2 talismans into them and disappeared. However, from the looks of it, the person seemed to be refining the treasure and had no time to think about escaping. He was only being carried by a late core forging cultivator. This was a good opportunity to stop him. Chapter 646. Lu Ping looked at Zhang Tianlin Laozu, who was using all his strength to refine the space treasure in his hand. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. He didn't think that even a Dharma cultivator would cause such a big commotion. Now he had to hide from a Dharma cultivator. At this moment, Lu Ping no longer dared to fly towards Yinghe's cave dwelling. When he looked back, he saw Ancestor Changhe's hands tearing the void in front of him and disappearing into a space door. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He activated all the true essence in his body and injected it into the boat under his feet. Even with the cloud light 5-colored clothes, the energy that exploded from the boat still broke through the cloud light 5-colored clothes and left a dazzling trail of light in the sky. Just as Lu Ping flew away, the space around him suddenly twisted. The clouds that Lu Ping used to hide his body suddenly disappeared into the void vortex. Patriarch Changhe appeared in midair a few hundred feet away from the vortex. Lu Ping, who seemed to be trying his best to escape, sneered coldly. His feet flickered continuously, and each flash brought him a few hundred feet away. After 5 flashes, he was already 3 to 4 miles away from Lu Ping. Now, he was only a few thousand feet away from Lu Ping. Because Lu Ping was steering the ship with all his might, his true essence was pouring out like a torrential flood, staining the entire ship's surface with a bluish-purple hue. The scattered bluish-purple spirit lights filled the sky as the ship streaked across, forming a thick trail of light. Lu Ping no longer cared about hiding his tracks. All he could do was flee with all his might. Just at this moment, 2 long roars came from behind River Laozu. River Laozu's expression changed. The light under his feet flashed again, and the distance between him and Lu Ping closed again. At this moment, the 2 rays of light behind River Laozu suddenly flanked Lu Ping from the left and right. Haha! Which sect is this fellow Taoist from? He actually silently entered my sky-piercing mountain range and didn't even inform us before leaving. If news of this were to spread, wouldn't all the cultivators in the world laugh at our 3 sects for not providing good hospitality? Brother Wuji from Yingshan sect is right. My Tao Universe sect has already prepared a banquet to welcome you. Since you don't want to be a guest at Brother Long River's Yinghe sect, you can come to my Tao Universe sect. Lu Ping's face was full of bitterness, while River Laozu was dissatisfied. As the two Laozu were speaking, they moved to flank Han Shu. At the same time, River Laozu, who was behind Lu Ping, suddenly sped up to close the distance between him and Lu Ping. Humph! Brother Wuji, Brother Yushang, I invited you two here. It is only natural that I owe you a favor. However, this fellow actually relied on his cultivation base to behave atrociously within the territory of my Ingha sect. He even stole our sect's treasure. I hope you two can help me get my treasure back. My Ingha sect will definitely reward you handsomely. River Laozu's sudden words caused the two Laozus to feel embarrassed to say anything more. At any rate, their three sects had sworn an oath to help each other. However, these people were old and shrewd. They simply did not care about their pride. What River Laozu said earlier caused the two Laozus to let their imaginations run wild. Brother Long River, what treasure did this fellow steal from your sect? For you to actually need to hand over the talisman of the Three Sects Alliance, Brother Yushang and I were shocked. Yingshan Sect's Wuji Laozu's eyes darted around. He once again asked about the item in Jiang Tianlin's possession. As for River Laozu's words, the two of them were skeptical. River Laozu said calmly, "It is just a bronze mirror that our sect left behind. However, this involves our sect's privacy. Forgive me, old man, for not being able to say more." River Laozu's attitude caused Wuji Laozu's expression to change. Just as he was about to explode, Dao Universe Sect's Yushang Laozu stepped forward to smooth things over. "You two, now is not the time to bicker. If I am not wrong, the person who escaped in front of us should only be a late core forging adept. Yet, he was able to last so long against us. Could it be that the two of you are not done playing with him? Furthermore, I can see that the other cultivator in front of the flying boat is also a Dharma adept. However, it is clear that he is at a critical juncture in refining the treasure that he stole from the Yinghe sect. If the three of us do not hurry and surround the two of them, once that cultivator succeeds in refining the treasure, it will be difficult for us to take back the treasure." Yushang Laozu's words clearly gave the two of them a way out. The three streaks of light immediately advanced together, gradually forming a pincer attack on the fleeing Lu Ping. However, just as the three of them began to surround him, the boat beneath Lu Ping's feet suddenly shone with a green light. After the green light appeared, it rapidly suppressed the bluish-purple light of the essential core to a thin line, allowing it to dominate the boat. The body of the boat shook, and its speed suddenly increased by several times. Under the furious gazes of Changhe Laozu and the incredulous gazes of the other two, the boat managed to break through the encirclement of the three Dharma adepts. Lu Ping let out a long sigh of relief. This was the first time he had faced the terror of a Dharma adept. If he had been just a little bit more, Lu Ping and the others would have been surrounded by the three Dharma adepts. If that had happened, even if Jiang Tianlin Laozu had been able to successfully break through, Lu Ping himself would not have been able to escape. Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who was standing at the bow of the boat, laughed softly and said, "This time we have obtained a good treasure." Just now, at the last moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had refined the copper mirror in his hand, and used his vast essential core to control the boat in an instant. This had allowed Lu Ping to escape from the encirclement of the Dharma adepts. However, the boat was ultimately a flying treasure that Lu Ping had refined, and it was not compatible with the techniques that Jiang Tianlin Laozu practiced. Just now, the three Dharma adepts had not expected that Jiang Tianlin Laozu would be able to increase the speed of the boat in an instant. However, after escaping from the encirclement, the boat's speed had decreased once again. Lu Ping knew that the main reason for this was still him. If it was just Jiang Tianlin Laozu alone, the three of them would definitely not be able to catch up to him. However, now that Jiang Tianlin Laozu still had to bring Lu Ping out of danger, he seemed to be unable to do so. Lu Ping knew that this was not the way to go on. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Jiang Tianlin Laozu's voice. "I will first block the three of them. You escape first. After that, the three of them will naturally not be able to stop me." Lu Ping knew that this was his only chance of survival. If he stayed, he would instead become a burden to Laozu. At his current level, he clearly did not have the right to interfere in a battle between Dharma adepts, much less a battle between four Dharma adepts. Zhang Tianlin Laozu leapt up from the boat and pounced towards the 3 Dharma adepts behind Lu Ping like a large bird. In the instant that Zhang Tianlin Laozu leapt up, Lu Ping's eyes could clearly see that on Zhang Tianlin Laozu's face, there was suddenly an additional mask that was as dry as tree bark. It was obvious that Zhang Tianlin Laozu did not want to reveal his identity. Seeing this, Lu Ping felt reassured. Zhang Tianlin Laozu's actions showed that he was extremely confident that he would be able to escape unscathed from being surrounded by the 3 of them. This might sound a little unbelievable, but Lu Ping was very sure of it. This was despite the fact that among the 3 Dharma adepts, Changhe Laozu of the Ying He sect had already reached the peak of the early Dharma stage. Zhang Tianlin Laozu let out a long howl as he waved his sleeves to his sides. The qi in the air quickly condensed into 2 huge claws that seemed to have broken through the void. They struck towards Wuxia Laozu and Yushang Laozu, who had once again tried to flank them from both sides. The 2 patriarchs were infuriated. It was one thing for the other party to fight 1 against 3, but to think that he would be able to stop the 2 of them with just 1 move was too arrogant and conceited. The 2 of them used all their strength to teach Zhang Tianlin Laozu a lesson. However, just as the 2 claws whistled towards their heads, Wuxia Laozu and Yushang Laozu seemed to have realized something, and their expressions changed drastically. It was a good thing that the 2 of them had used all their strength to make Zhang Tianlin Laozu suffer. There was only a sound of thunder in the sky, and the 2 claws formed from qi immediately shattered. However, even with the 2 Laozu's combined forces, their path was actually blocked by the person in front of them with just 1 move. However, this was not the end. Just as Zhang Tianlin Laozu moved to block the 2 Dharma adepts, Long River Laozu, who was in the middle, took this opportunity to rush forward and directly strike towards Zhang Tianlin Laozu's chest. If this strike landed, Long River Laozu was confident that if the person in front of him did not die, he would be seriously injured. At that time, the 3 of them might even be able to kill this person completely. Thinking about the mirror that Zhang Tianlin Laozu had taken from the pool, Long River Laozu's blood surged. It was a good thing that Wuxia and Yushang did not know about this. Otherwise, not only would the 2 of them not have tried their best, they might even cause trouble. Once he had this mirror, Long River Laozu was confident that he would have a higher chance of advancing to the mid-Dharma stage. Even if Long River Laozu was still at the early Dharma stage, with the power of this stage, Long River Laozu was confident that he would be able to suppress Wuxia and Yushang. When he thought of this, Long River Laozu's eyes grew even more fervent, and the force behind his strike increased by a few notches. Poof! Long River Laozu felt as though his palm had struck something. However, the scene of his bones breaking and blood spurting out did not appear as he had imagined. When he looked up, he saw a middle-aged cultivator wearing a mask made out of withered tree bark. He had unknowingly retracted his palm, and was actually able to take on Long River Laozu's full-powered strike. There was a playful look on the middle-aged cultivator's face. Knowing that things were not looking good, Long River Laozu wanted to retreat. Unexpectedly, he tightened his grip. He was still in the position of taking on the middle-aged cultivator's palm. His palm was seemingly glued to the middle-aged cultivator's palm. 2 shocked cries rang out at the same time. Treasured mirror of emptiness. Long River Laozu raised his head and saw that a copper mirror, shining with spiritual light, had unknowingly hovered above the middle-aged cultivator's head. Seeing that, Long River Laozu's face instantly turned pale. Chapter 647. Why was Zhang Tianlin Laozu known as the #1 second-generation disciple in the North Sea training world? Previously, Lu Ping had only heard from his senior sisters about the shocking things that Zhang Tianlin Laozu had done before he had advanced to the Dharma stage. However, what he had seen with his own eyes was that Zhang Tianlin Laozu's level of practice was unparalleled among the second-generation disciples. Although he had also participated in the battle between Jinling and Xianling sect, at that time, Lu Ping had only been an early blood condensation minor repairs warrior. He could not have seen Jinling Xuanlin's power at that time, but now Lu Ping could truly feel it. They were all early Dharma adepts, and Zhang Tianlin Laozu's level of practice was even at the peak of the early Dharma stage. However, Zhang Tianlin Laozu was actually able to fight against 3 adepts at the same time and not be at a disadvantage. Hearing the increasingly earth-shattering roar coming from behind him, Lu Ping wished that he could turn back and join in the battle. However, He now knew that he was not qualified to participate in the battle between Dharma adepts. At this moment, two exclamations suddenly came from behind him. The abundant void mirror. Lu Ping's heart jumped. He recognized these two voices as the two Dharma adepts who had just arrived. Now that he heard the fear in their exclamations, it was clear that this abundant void mirror was the bronze mirror that Zhang Tianlin Laozu had just obtained. When Changhe Laozu saw the mirror floating above Zhang Tianlin Laozu's head, he was instantly scared out of his wits. However, before he could use all his strength to break free from Zhang Tianlin Laozu's grasp, the abundant void mirror suddenly shot out a beam of light that enveloped Changhe Laozu's body. Changhe Laozu instantly froze in midair, as if his entire body had been imprisoned. Other than his eyes, he could not move at all. Zhang Tianlin Laozu laughed coldly. His palms formed into claws, and he grabbed at Changhe Laozu's chest from afar. A wave of inner yuan had already been formed in midair by Zhang Tianlin Laozu's palms, and it was aimed at Changhe Laozu's chest. Once it landed, Changhe Laozu's core space would definitely be destroyed. How dare you? Stop! Patriarch Yushang, Patriarch Five Blessings, and Patriarch Long River had many conflicts because of their respective sects, but they were all interdependent. How could they allow Patriarch Long River to perish? The two of them attacked Zhang Tianlin Laozu with their full strength, but they were not strong enough to take on the attacks of two Dharma adepts who were of the same cultivation level as him. Helpless, they could only try to protect themselves. Zhang Tianlin Laozu pushed his palms forward, and his body had already retreated. Without Zhang Tianlin Laozu's support, the inner Yuan claw's power was greatly reduced. However, with Zhang Tianlin Laozu's push, it still clawed at Changhe Laozu's chest. At this moment, Changhe Laozu, who was imprisoned by the Ying Su treasured mirror, suddenly opened his eyes wide. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead, and his jaw trembled as he let out an angry roar. Changhe Laozu finally broke free from the Ying Su treasured mirror's imprisonment. At the same time, he tried his best to dodge to the side, trying to avoid Zhang Tianlin Laozu's attack. Suddenly, Changhe Laozu, who was imprisoned by the Ying Su treasured mirror, opened his eyes wide and beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. His jaw trembled and he let out a furious roar. Changhe Laozu finally broke free from the Ying Su treasured mirror's imprisonment. At the same time, he tried his best to dodge to the side, trying to avoid Zhang Tianlin Laozu's attack. However, in the blink of an eye, Changhe Laozu only managed to avoid a vital point on his chest. The claws still managed to grab onto Changhe Laozu's left rib cage, easily breaking the astral energy protecting his body and breaking two of his ribs. At the same time, a hidden force pierced into his abdomen. Changhe Laozu could no longer hold back a mouthful of blood, and it finally spilled out from the corner of his mouth. Although this injury was nothing to Changhe Laozu, he was extremely wary of Zhang Tianlin Laozu in front of him. When Ancestor Zhang Tianlin saw that Ancestor Long River had broken free from the shackles of the Yingshu treasured mirror, he sighed inwardly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had refined the mirror in a hurry, he wouldn't have been able to unleash the full power of the shackles. Otherwise, Ancestor Long River wouldn't have been able to break free so easily. At this time, Zhang Tianlin Laozu had achieved his goal of delaying the three Dharma adepts. The Ying Su treasured mirror above his head suddenly spun and shot out a beam of light towards Yushang and Wuji Laozu. Just now, Changhe Laozu's encounter had startled the two of them, and they hurriedly dodged to the side. However, Zhang Tianlin Laozu took the opportunity to jump out of the battle between the three of them. As he laughed, Zhang Tianlin Laozu swaggered off, leaving Changhe Laozu and the other two Dharma adepts behind, not daring to chase after him. After a long time, Changhe Laozu sighed and said, "Who is this person? His cultivation level is only about the same as ours, but this strength, he is actually able to fight one against three and not be at a disadvantage." Yushang Laozu's eyes were a little dazed as he muttered, "This person must be a Dharma adept from one of the big sects in the Central Plains, or maybe even a cultivator from one of the big sections. Otherwise, how could he be so strong? That's right, he must be a cultivator from one of the big sections." Changhe Laozu nodded and did not say anything. However, he heard Wuji Laozu's cold laugh. "Brother Changhe, when did the Ying Su treasured mirror become the possession of your Ying He sect's ancestor? Can we ask you about this?" At this time Yushang Laozu also reacted and said in a strange tone, "Brother Wuji is right. The Ying Su treasured mirror is a treasure of the Ying He sect. It is said that the mirror was originally a treasure of the Ying He sect, but if a cultivator who is not from the Ying He sect tries to enter it, he will be hit by a ray of light from the mirror and then be immobilized. Brother Changhe must have known what the treasure is, but you made up such an absurd reason. Do you think we are 3 years old?" Patriarch Long River took out a jade bottle from his bosom and poured out a pill from it before carefully placing it in his mouth. His complexion, which was previously injured, immediately improved a lot. Wuji Laozu saw that Changhe Laozu was still so calm in the face of their questioning, and his face immediately became angry. However, he heard Changhe Laozu say, "The two of you don't need to be like this. If the two of you were in the old man's place, what would you have done? I don't think the old man needs to say anything more about this matter, right?" Wuji Laozu snorted coldly and did not say another word. Yushang Laozu, on the other hand, chuckled. Clearly, the two of them had silently agreed with Changhe Laozu's words. Changhe Laozu saw that the two of them did not continue to harp on this matter, and so he said, "It's just that today's matter is obviously very strange. Actually, the day before yesterday, the old man had already discovered traces of another early Dharma adept. It was just that that person was unusually vigilant, and after sensing that something was wrong, he quickly escaped from the old man's pursuit. Although the person today is not the same person as the person from the day before, the Yinghe Mountains have been silent for thousands of years without a Dharma adept appearing. Now, two people have appeared at the same time. Don't you all find this strange?" Yushang Laozu's expression changed and he said, "Could it be that the Ying Tian sect still has some sort of legacy hidden within the mountains that has not been discovered until now, and now someone has clearly found some clues?" Changhe Laozu nodded, but then he heard Wuji Laozu say, "Yesterday, I also discovered traces of a Dharma adept appearing in the mountains." Changhe Laozu's expression became serious, and he turned to look at Wuji Laozu and asked, "Is that true?" Changhe Laozu saw that Wuji Laozu was about to explode, so he changed his words and said, "If that's the case, I'm afraid that the Yinghe Mountains will be very lively again this time." Yushang Laozu said in a low voice, "In that case, why would these people come here? If it's about secret territories, then that person just now obtained the Yinghe treasured mirror, and this treasure itself is actually a secret territory of a cavern. Could it be that these people suddenly have clues about several secret territories? How could the Ying Tian sect still have so many secret territories? What else could they be here for?" Changhe Laozu's next words seemed to have been guessed by the other two Laozus as well. It could only be the Ying Tian sect. When Changhe Laozu personally mentioned the Ying Tian sect, a look of greed flashed across the faces of the three of them. "This Ying Tian mountain range is owned by our 3 clans, and our 3 clans are the true heirs of the Ying Tian sect. The Ying Tian sect should also be inherited by our 3 clans." As Changhe Laozu said this, he sized up the two people in front of him. Seeing the greed and fanaticism in their eyes, a mocking smile flashed across Changhe Laozu's face. Lu Ping waited for Zhang Tianlin Laozu in a remote area. Seeing how relaxed Zhang Tianlin Laozu was, Lu Ping could not help but feel a little envious. "Uncle Master, you're fighting 1 against 3? Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "What's there to show off about fighting 1 against 3? I've heard that you've even fought 1 against 5 and 7 cultivators of the same level." Lu Ping chuckled and said, "That's different. You're fighting 1 against 3 at the Dharma stage. Cultivators who are able to reach the Dharma stage are all extremely talented. This is much more difficult than me fighting against those cultivators who have unstable foundations and rely on external forces to increase their cultivation." Zhang Tianlin Laozu chuckled and handed him a mirror. "This time it's all thanks to this Yinghe Tian mirror that you found. This is a spirit-nurturing level grotto heaven treasure, and it also has a magical power that can emit a ray of light to imprison the opponent within. It's a rare treasure. This is actually a spirit-nurturing level grotto heaven treasure." Lu Ping looked at the mirror in his hand in surprise. The surface of the mirror was covered with a layer of dense qi. With a wave of his hand, the dense qi dispersed, and Lu Ping saw the small lake, the mountain peak, the palace on the top of the mountain that was covered with restrictions, and the spirit grass that grew all over the mountains and plains. Suddenly, these scenes flashed on the surface of the copper mirror. But I don't think the grotto heaven in this treasure is very spacious. It's far inferior to our sect's second-ranked grotto heaven, the Jade Grotto Heaven. Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, the higher the level of the grotto heaven treasure, the larger the size of the grotto heaven. The quality of the grotto heaven treasure is more dependent on the stability of the space in the grotto heaven. In fact, the size of our sect's first inheritance, the true spirit grotto heaven, is not as large as the Jade Grotto Heaven. This Yinghe Tian mirror is essentially a treasure that can attack in grotto heaven at the same time, so it will inevitably affect the size of the grotto heaven. In order to not arouse the attention of others, the two of them made a big detour in the mountain range before sneaking back into the rocky cave through the river. Chapter 648. In the rocky cave, everyone took a look at the Mirror of Abundance. Everyone's faces were filled with joy at obtaining such a spirit-nurturing level grotto heaven treasure. In particular, the Mirror of Abundance was not just a grotto heaven treasure. It contained the light of confinement. Zhang Tianlin Laozu had only refined it in a hurry, but it had the power to confine a Dharma manifestation stage cultivator. If Zhang Tianlin Laozu completely refined this mirror, how much more powerful would it be? Zhang Tianlin Laozu saw everyone's reaction and could not help but smile. The power of this mirror seems strong, but it can only be used for surprise attacks. Once the opponent is prepared, it is not too difficult to avoid or resist the light of confinement. Unlike everyone else who was amazed by the power of the light of confinement, Sage Xiansu was more interested in the grotto heaven space in the Mirror of Abundance, or rather the endless spirit herb garden in the grotto heaven space. The rare spirit herbs in this spirit herb garden are secondary. The key is that the scale of this spirit herb garden can be said to be the largest among the spirit herb gardens in our sect. Moreover, most of the spirit herbs in this garden have already matured. If we can integrate it into a good cultivation system with the spirit herb gardens in our sect, then even if our sect still can't be completely self-sufficient in terms of spirit herbs, we can still have an endless supply of them. As a large sect in the past, the spirit herbs produced in one grotto heaven treasure were almost a third of all the spirit herb gardens in our sect. This kind of heritage is really beyond our sect's reach. Sage Xiansu's words were recognized by everyone. Sage Xiansan stretched out his finger and drew across the surface of the mirror. The location in the grotto heaven shown in the mirror changed. When it stopped, the mirror showed the palace surrounded by the restriction on the peak of the mountain in the center of the grotto heaven. Enlightened Master Xiansu pointed at the palace and said, "This must be the most important place in this grotto heaven." Senior brother Tianlin said that he had yet to completely refine this grotto heaven. I believe he was referring to this place. Zhang Tianlin Laozu placed the bronze mirror on the stone table, and then jumped into the bronze mirror. When everyone looked again, Zhang Tianlin Laozu had already landed in front of the palace on the peak of the mountain. Then, Zhang Tianlin Laozu made a few hand seals and the restriction on the surface of the palace suddenly shook violently. As Zhang Tianlin Laozu made the hand seals faster and faster, the restriction on the surface of the palace shook more and more violently. The image on the bronze mirror became more and more blurred, and the bronze mirror itself on the stone table suddenly began to jump, making banging sounds. The bronze mirror jumped for about the time it took to drink a cup of tea before it gradually calmed down. The blurry surface of the mirror also gradually became clear. However, the image inside was constantly changing, constantly showing the scene in the grotto heaven. After another incense stick of time, the image on the mirror finally stopped at the palace on the peak of the mountain. Then Zhang Tianlin Laozu walked out of the palace. Then Zhang Tianlin Laozu raised his head and smiled at everyone outside the mirror. Suddenly, the surface of the bronze mirror shot out a ray of light. Everyone hurriedly dodged. The ray of light shone on the stone wall and a spatial portal appeared from the light. Zhang Tianlin Laozu walked out of the portal and pointed at the bronze mirror on the stone table. The abundant void treasure mirror disappeared from the stone table. After Zhang Tianlin Laozu came out of the bronze mirror, he stretched out his hand and threw 2 jade slips to Lu Ping. He said, "There are some jade slips about the cultivation of spirit herbs in the palace. I think they will be useful to you. Remember them first. Later, take them back to the sect." After saying that, he took out a mid-grade pill furnace and handed it to Lu Ping. Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said to everyone, The cultivator who guarded or managed this grotto heaven in the past must have been very interested in alchemy. However, this person's alchemy skills are not very good. In addition to many inheritance about the cultivation of spirit herbs, there is also a mid-grade pill furnace magic tool. There also seems to be a fire seed. However, no one has looked after it for thousands of years and it has long been extinguished. The rest are some blood condensation pill recipes and alchemy insights. They are not very valuable. Daoist Xianju said with some disappointment. So there are not many valuable treasures in the palace? Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, this palace is the core of the treasure mirror. No matter what, we have to break the restriction of this palace. Otherwise, I won't be able to completely refine the abundant void treasure mirror in my hands, and I won't be able to fully display the power of the treasure mirror. After Daoist Xianju took the second bell cauldron pill, his internal injuries had mostly healed. The rest could only rely on a long period of recuperation. However, this also prevented Daoist Xianju's injuries from affecting his cultivation foundation. When Daoist Xianju saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu appear, he smiled and said, now the spirit mineral lode in the Yingtian dojo will belong to our sect again. With the rarity and preciousness of a grotto heaven treasure, I think Laozu from the other sects will not have a grotto heaven treasure on him. Moreover, the abundant void treasure mirror is a spirit nurturing level grotto heaven treasure that has condensed 7 restrictions. Daoist Xianchan didn't seem to agree with Daoist Xianju's point of view. He said, I'm afraid it's not that simple. According to Martial Nephew Liu, the location of the spirit mineral lode is not a secret. It can be said that the cultivators of the various sects will immediately discover its location after entering the Yingtian dojo. At that time, once senior brother Jiang starts to move the spirit mineral lode, he will inevitably be stopped by the cultivators of the various sections. If they can't get it, naturally they won't let our sect get it. Even if the various sects agree to move the spirit mineral lode to the abundant void treasure, I'm afraid they will have to divide the spirit mineral lode as the price. At that time, our sect may not get much benefit. Jiang Tianlin Laozu also had a look of pity on his face. After thinking for a while, he asked Daoist Xianchan, junior sister, how long will it take to set up the Great Relocation Formation? Daoist Xianchan shook his head and said, 2 hours is enough. I have some ready-made formations and tools here, but the problem is not how long it takes for me to set up the formation. Once I start to set up the Great Relocation Formation, the cultivators of the various sects will definitely guess that senior brother has a heavenly abode magic treasure on him. At that time, it's hard to say whether or not the Great Relocation Formation will be successfully set up. At this time, Lu Ping said, Disciples' Grey Earthen Jar will probably be able to reopen the Yingtian dojo the next day. At that time we will first sneak in and collect the spirit mineral lode. At that time perhaps we can first break the restrictions inside that we can break. After we've reaped enough benefits, we can then meet up with the other sections. With the combined strength of the various sects, we can break the restrictions that our sect can't break alone. Isn't that better? Lu Ping thought that his method would be approved by everyone, but unexpectedly, after he finished speaking, everyone's faces revealed looks of pity. Lu Ping was startled and said, What's wrong? Could it be that disciples' method won't work? Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, It's not that your method won't work, but because the various sects have agreed to meet up at midnight tonight. At that time, even if the earthen jar can be used again, we won't have the time to open it. Lu Ping said disappointedly, What if I bring martial Uncle Xianchen to set up the formation first? Anyway, it's impossible for Laozu from the various sects to find the Yingtian dojo in the first place. Even if they find it, martial Uncle Xuanju will be able to buy some time. At that time we can say that because martial Uncle Xuanju is injured, our sect had no choice but to let martial Uncle Xuanju summon the disciples who are traveling in the Central Plains to temporarily replace martial Uncle Xuanju. Jiang Tianlin Laozu stretched out his hand and took out an item. When Lu Ping looked at it, he saw that it was a small and exquisite bell. Seeing the puzzled look on Lu Ping's face, Jiang Tianlin Laozu explained, This small bell is called the synchronized bell. It's a magic tool from the Shui Yin Pavilion. This magic tool has a wonderful function. When one bell rings, the other bells within a certain range will ring at the same time. At the same time, the cultivators from the various sects can also use this bell to determine the location of the other sections. Zhang Tianlin Laozu put away the bell and said, "At midnight tonight, the cultivators from the various sects will ring the synchronized bell at the same time. This will be the symbol of the various sects gathering. At that time, junior sister Xianchen, as one of the only 3 formation grandmasters in the North Sea, will definitely arouse the vigilance of the various sects if she's not around. At that time, I'm afraid that our sect will become the target of public criticism before we even enter the Yingtian dojo." Lu Ping sighed and said, "I originally thought that after subduing the Yingsu treasure mirror, the spirit stone vein in the Yingtian dojo would already be in our hands. I didn't expect it to be so difficult. Since that's the case, we can only try this method." When everyone heard that Lu Ping actually had a method, their spirits immediately rose. Then they heard Lu Ping ask Zhang Tianlin Laozu, "Martial uncle, how confident are you that when you release a spiritual pet from the spiritual beast bag, it won't be discovered by the other sex cultivators?" Zhang Tianlin Laozu was stunned and asked, "What?" At midnight, Lu Ping, along with Zhang Tianlin Laozu and the others, had already arrived at a place several hundred miles away from the rocky cave in the middle of the Ying River. They were afraid that when the synchronized bell rang, the location of the rocky cave would be discovered by everyone. Ring ring ring. At midnight, the synchronized bell in Zhang Tianlin Laozu's hand suddenly rang 3 times. Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "This should be the Blue Sea sect." This time they agreed to ring the bell 3 times. Judging from the direction of the bell, the Blue Sea sect should be 300 miles away from here in the northeast, not too far from us. After saying that, Zhang Tianlin Laozu rang the synchronized bell in his hand 7 times in a row, indicating to the various sects that the cultivators Jinling had also arrived. After that, the synchronized bell rang one after another. Each time, the number of times the bell rang was different, representing different sections. After the synchronized bell rang for the 9th time and 9 times in a row, Zhang Tianlin Laozu put away the synchronized bell and turned to everyone and said, "Let's go northeast. This time we'll meet at the Blue Sea sect." Chapter 649. There were only 3 formation grandmasters in the North Sea's cultivation world. Other than Zhenling sect's perfected master Xianchan, who had just become a grandmaster, the other 2 formation grandmasters were Xianling sect's perfected master Qian Daofeng, and the other was from Shuiyan Pavilion. All 3 formation grandmasters had come along for this trip to Yingtian dojo. In addition, there were also 2 formation masters. One was from Haiyan sect, and the other was from Linggu sect, which had just joined Songhai sect's camp. Before Songhai sect split up thousands of years ago, its ranking in the North Sea cultivation world was even higher than Jinling, and its foundation was comparable to that of Xianling sect. Unfortunately, after thousands of years of division and internal strife, the Azure Sea sect didn't even have a single formation grandmaster after they reunited. And this time, after Linggu sect and the Azure Sea sect formed an alliance, they took up the sect's only late-stage core forging cultivator's spot, sending the sect's only formation grandmaster to the Midlands to assist the Azure Sea sect's cultivators in opening the Yingtian dojo. This time, each sect had sent an early Dharma adept, Laozu, to open up Yingtian dojo. The difference between each sect was reflected in the number of late core forging adepts who would accompany them. After Celestial Laozu advanced to the late Dharma stage and became the 2nd great adept in the North Sea, Jinling had now become the number 1 sect in the North Sea. In the Battle of Frost Island, Jinling was the biggest beneficiary. This time, there were a total of 4 late core forging adepts who would accompany them on this trip to Yingtian dojo. Xianling sect, Songhai sect, Haiyan sect, and Shuiyan Pavilion were each accompanied by 2 late core forging adepts. Originally, Xianling sect wanted to fight for 3 people, but as Jinling's main target, they naturally received strong opposition from Jinling. The other sects were unable to restrict Jinling, so they were more than happy to see Xianling sect weakened, so that they could further shorten the distance between the sections. As for the other 4 sects, they were only allowed to send 1 late core forging cultivator to accompany them. This also reflected the current situation of the North Sea's cultivation world after the Blue Sea sect was placed side by side. Other than Jinling, who had an obvious advantage, Xianling sect, Blue Sea sect, Haiyan sect, and Shui Yen Pavilion were basically in the second tier of the North Sea's cultivation world, while the other 4 sects were in the third tier. These 9 sects were clearly divided into 4 factions. Among them, the Jade Sword faction and the High Brightness faction were led by Jinling. The 3 Dharma adepts, Laozu, and 6 late core forging cultivators were the most tyrannical among the 4 factions. For some unknown reason, the Songhai sect had managed to win over Xianling sect's former ally, the Linggu sect, to join them. However, the leader of the Songhai sect, Dongguo Laozu, was a practitioner at the peak of the early Dharma stage. In terms of cultivation, he was the strongest among all the Dharma adepts of the various sections. Moreover, the Songhai sect had also sent Zhang Shi, who was at the peak of the core forging realm and was about to enter the Dharma stage, to accompany them. This person was undoubtedly the strongest among all the late core forging cultivators of the various sections. However, when Zhang Shi saw Lu Ping behind Zhang Tianlin Laozu, the corner of his mouth unconsciously twitched. He, Zhang Shi, could be considered famous in the North Sea's cultivation world. Unexpectedly, the Battle of Frost Island had become the stepping stone for Lu Ping to become famous in the North Sea. After Xianling sect lost the support of the Linggu sect, they only had Feiyu sect as their staunch ally. However, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Just by looking at the formation master that Xianling sect had sent out, one could see that. Compared to Jinling's spiritual master Xianchan and Shui Yen Pavilion's green tea enlightened, Zhang Daofeng was undoubtedly the strongest formation master in the North Sea. Although Zhang Daofeng's cultivation level was only at the late core forging realm, his seniority was the same as Xianling sect's first-generation cultivator, Dao Sheng Laozu. When he became a formation master, spiritual master Xianchan and green tea enlightened were probably not even formation masters. Shui Yen Pavilion and Hai Yin sect had always been independent in the North Sea's cultivation world. However, no one dared to underestimate the alliance between these 2 sections, 2 Dharma adepts and 4 late core forging realm adepts. With the formation master green tea enlightened among them, their strength was no weaker than the Songhai sect. It was just that these 2 sects had deliberately kept a low profile, which showed the Songhai sect's aggressiveness. After the various sects had gathered at the Songhai sect's location, in order not to attract the attention of the Dharma adepts of the 3 sects, there was not much communication. With the help of the 2 formation masters, the 3 formation masters quickly confirmed the approximate location of the Yingtian dojo. Looking at Zhang Tianlin Laozu's questioning gaze, Lu Ping nodded his head slightly. The location that the formation masters had confirmed was in the direction of the source of the Yingtian dojo. At the source of the Yingtian dojo, the 3 formation masters easily confirmed through their own methods that the destroyed altar was the entrance to the Yingtian dojo. It was just that the various sects did not know how to open the Yingtian dojo, and they did not have the gray clay pot in Lu Ping's hand. Hence, they could only rely on the powers of the 10 Dharma adepts, Laozu, to tear apart the space where the Yingtian dojo was located and break through the protective formation of the Yingtian dojo. After the 5 formation masters confirmed the location of the Yingtian dojo, they quickly set up a sound and light concealing formation within a radius of a few hundred feet. With this formation as cover, the various Laozus would not be discovered by others due to the earth-shattering formation when they broke through the formation. Everything was ready. Copper Sword Laozu was the first to make a move. A copper sword slashed at the location indicated by the 3 formation masters, and the surface of the copper sword's blade was wrapped in a layer of golden light. The vibrating void was like a piece of skin that had been sliced open, revealing the Yingtian dojo that was covered by the light screen of the formation. After the void was sliced open by the copper sword Laozu, it was about to close up again. Another 4 Laozus gave a loud shout, and 4 chi hands condensed in the sky. After grabbing the 2 parts of the void that had been sliced open, they violently pulled it apart, and the crack in the void that had been about to close up was instantly torn apart and enlarged. Immediately after, the remaining 4 Laozus, including Dongguo Laozu's group, along with the 16 late core forging adepts, struck at the light screen of the Yingtian dojo. Rumble! The light screen of the formation shook, and even the surrounding void trembled. Again! Dongguo Laozu shouted. Feng Shutao, Zhang Tianlin, and the others struck again. Finally, the light screen of the formation cracked like glass, and its surface cracked. When everyone struck for the 3rd time, the light screen of the formation finally shattered, and a hole about 10 feet in height appeared in front of everyone. Lu Ping controlled the golden scale sword to participate in the attack. Through the hole, he could clearly see that the Yingtian dojo was covered by various restrictions. Seeing the dojo of a large sect standing in front of them, and thinking about the inheritance of the Yingtian dojo inside, even though the Laozus were used to the storms of the cultivation world, they could not contain their excitement at this moment. One by one, they turned into streaks of light and flew into the hole in the void. Perfected Xianqin said in a low voice, "Let's go in quickly as well. This tunnel won't last for long." Jinling and the rest followed the Laozu's streaks of light and flew into the dojo. The other sect's cultivators also followed suit and flew into the Yingtian dojo. While the Laozus were using up all the energy in the Yingtian dojo, Donghua Laozu, relying on his peak early Dharma stage cultivation, took the lead and entered the dojo. Feng Shutao followed closely behind him. Zhang Tianlin Laozu, however, was the last among the 9 Laozus. Furthermore, when Zhang Tianlin Laozu entered the dojo, he had already reacted half a beat slower than the others. In order to be first, he had to try to overtake the Dharma adepts in front of him from the side of the tunnel. However, he had forgotten that after losing the support of the other Laozus, the entire tunnel began to shrink. When Zhang Tianlin Laozu passed from the side, he almost triggered the spatial fragments on both sides of the tunnel, as well as the protective formation of the Yingtian dojo behind the tunnel. For a moment, Zhang Tianlin Laozu, who had always been famous in the cultivation world of the North Sea, was in a sorry state. In order to avoid these restrictions, Zhang Tianlin Laozu had no choice but to move away from the front of the dojo, which was covered by the multicolored restrictions. Thus, he was forced to land in a remote area of the dojo. It was not easy to see the famous Jinling Zhang Tianlin Laozu make a fool of himself in front of everyone. Tongjian Laozu and Saming Laozu had some understanding of Zhang Tianlin Laozu's abilities. With Zhang Tianlin Laozu's abilities, being the last one to enter the Yingtian dojo had already surprised the two of them. Now that Zhang Tianlin Laozu had made such a mistake, the expressions on their faces became even more strange. Although the Laozus from the other sects did not show their expressions due to the power of Jinling, their gazes still showed that they were openly mocking Zhang Tianlin. However, what the crowd did not see was that when Zhang Tianlin Laozu staggered from the tunnel to the ground, his sleeves inadvertently touched the ground. After tidying himself up a little, Zhang Tianlin Laozu acted as if nothing had happened and slowly walked in the direction where everyone was gathered. Zhang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be unaware of the ridicule in everyone's eyes. At this time, Lu Ping and the others also flew in one after another from outside the space. Zhang Tianlin Laozu's accident just now was not only seen by the Laozu, but also by the core forging stage cultivators of the various sections. Apart from the cultivators of Jinling, the cultivators of the various sects looked at Zhang Tianlin Laozu with strange gazes. Only Zhang Shi looked at Zhang Tianlin Laozu with a puzzled expression. He was also a proud son of heaven like Zhang Tianlin Laozu, so he had a deep understanding of Zhang Tianlin Laozu. He did not think that this was a mistake on Zhang Tianlin Laozu's part. However, Zhang Shi didn't notice anything amiss in the end, and he could only put away the bewilderment in his heart. He stood behind Donggua's ancestor before the corners of his mouth moved, and he seemed to be communicating with Donggua's ancestor. The moment everyone entered the Yingtian dojo, the previously broken space and the protective array of the dojo automatically recovered. Zhang Tianlin Laozu and the other sect's Laozu stood in front of the area covered by the restrictive array, while Lu Ping and the others followed behind him. When Zhang Tianlin Laozu turned around, he exchanged a look with Lu Ping that no one else knew. Zhang Tianlin Laozu nodded slightly, and a trace of joy flashed across Lu Ping's face. Chapter 650. After all, that Zhang Tianlin has only been practicing for a short period of time, and his strength is not that high. Donghua Laozu saw that Zhang Tianlin Laozu did not seem to be doing anything from the beginning to the end, so he sent a message to Zhang Shi, who was walking behind him. Zhang Shi shook his head and said, "Uncle Master, you must not underestimate this person. This person has always been a gentleman, but on the inside, he is definitely a cunning person. There must be a reason for what he did just now." "Oh, A strange look flashed across Dongwu Laozu's eyes as he said, Did you see anything? Zhang Shi shook his head and said, On the surface I can't see anything. Perhaps what I saw was fake. However, Uncle Master, don't forget what happened last night. Someone seemed to have stolen something called the Yingshu treasured mirror from the Ying Tian sect. In the end, the Dharma adepts of the Ying Tian sect, Ying Shan sect, and Dao Space sect chased after him, but in the end he managed to escape. During the battle, the shouts of the few of them were very clear. You're saying that Jiang Tianlin was the person who stole the Yingshu treasured mirror from the Ying He sect yesterday, and the reason why Jiang Tianlin looked so tired just now was because he was severely injured after fighting with 3 Dharma adepts of the same level? A look of shock flashed across Dongwu Laozu's face, but he immediately denied it and said, Although this is possible, the old man does not believe it. Not to mention that Changhe Laozu of the Ying He sect is also at the peak of the early Dharma stage, which is comparable to the old man. Just the combined attack of 3 Dharma adepts would not be enough for Jiang Tianlin to break out of the encirclement. Zhang Shi still wanted to say something, but when he saw the confident expression on Dongwu Laozu's face, he finally swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. What Zhang Shi didn't know was that although he couldn't guess why Daoist Jiang Tianlin was in such a sorry state just now, he had accidentally guessed that the person who had obtained the abundant void mirror last night was Jiang Tianlin. However, what the two of them did not expect was that it was not as Dongwu Laozu had thought, that Jiang Tianlin would definitely be severely injured under the joint attack of the 3, nor was it as Zhang Shi had thought, that Jiang Tianlin Laozu would retreat with light injuries under the joint attack of the 3. Instead, it was Jiang Tianlin Laozu who had fought against 3 Dharma adepts of the same cultivation level as him and had retreated with ease. Dongwu Laozu glanced at the crowd before he coughed lightly and said, The Yingtian dojo is right before our eyes. What do all of you think? Dongwu Laozu looked as if he was asking the crowd a question, but he was actually looking at Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who was standing at the very edge of the crowd. However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu acted as if he hadn't heard Dongwu Laozu's words at all, and he continued to straighten out his clothes. Dongwu Laozu snorted coldly and was just about to say something when he heard Feng Shidao suddenly say, What else is there to say? For now, we'll just have to rely on our own strength. Dongwu Laozu saw that Jiang Tianlin Laozu was not saying a word, so he had no choice but to say very well, then we'll do as Daoist Feng says. However, let's get the ugly stuff out of the way first. There aren't many areas that are covered by the restrictive spells here, so we'll have to follow an order of priority. If there's a situation where the strong bully the weak due to the speed at which the restrictive spells are broken, we'll have to fight together. Dongwu Laozu's words sounded righteous, as if he was taking care of the 4 relatively weaker sections. However, the truth was that among the cultivators from the 9 great sects who had entered the Yingtian dojo, Jinling was the strongest on the surface. Dongwu Laozu's words were, in fact, targeted at Jinling. Feng Shidao was already running out of patience. Just now, he had received guidance from his sect's formation grandmaster, so he had already decided on the first target to attack. When he heard Dongwu Laozu's words, he hurriedly said, In that case, let's begin. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Shidao had already dashed forward, rushing toward an area on the left side of the dojo that was covered by a restrictive spell. 2 streaks of light followed closely behind him. One was Xianling sect's formation grandmaster, Qian Daofeng, and the other was someone familiar to Lu Ping, Xianling sect's peak core forging expert, Lu Shuheng. Lu Ping looked carefully. The direction that Xianling sect was heading toward was the only area in the entire dojo that was covered by the 3 rainbow-colored restrictive spells that Qingjian Laozu had broken in the past. Behind this area was a palace that was covered by 4 restrictive spells. Because the entire dojo was arranged in a concentric pattern, the area with 4 restrictions was surrounded by 3 restrictions. Thus, Xianling sect's first move was to find the only area covered by 4 restrictions in the entire dojo that they could come into contact with. Lu Ping looked toward the streak of light that Xianling sect's formation grandmaster, Qian Daofeng, was leading the way. This must be Qian Daofeng's contribution. As expected of the North Sea's number 1 formation grandmaster, his foresight was indeed extraordinary. At least, the Shui Yen Pavilion's formation grandmaster didn't discover this passage that led directly to the area covered by 4 restrictive spells. However, Lu Ping didn't agree with Xianling sect's choice. Could it be that the area covered by 4 restrictive spells was so easy to break? Just as Xianling's sect took the lead and rushed toward the area covered by 4 restrictive spells, the cultivators from the other sects also followed. However, the only area that could reach 4 restrictive spells had already been occupied by Xianling's sect, so the other sects could only rush toward the areas covered by 3 or 2 restrictive spells. Donghua Laozu sneered as he looked in the direction that Feng Xiutao and the others were heading. Then he led Zhang Xi and another disciple to another area. After receiving Lu Ping's warning, the Jinling cultivators had already come up with a countermeasure for the layout of Yingtian Dojo. Taking the lead, Zhang Tianlin Laozu rushed toward an area covered by 3 restrictive spells. At the same time, he drew a line with his fingers, and a pair of sharp claws appeared above the restrictive spells, stabbing into them. Countless restrictive spells lit up, but they couldn't stop the claws from tearing them apart. Zhang Tianlin Laozu pulled with all his might, and a burst of colorful spirit stars splashed out. One of the 3 intersecting rainbow-colored restrictive spells was instantly torn apart. The sound of tearing silk attracted the attention of the other 8 Laozu cultivators. A chill ran down Donghua Laozu's spine, and the look of disdain in his eyes when he looked at Zhang Tianlin Laozu was no longer there, only endless fear. Zhang Tianlin wasn't injured. This thought flashed through Zhang Xi's mind, but he immediately focused all his energy on breaking the restrictive spells in front of him. Just as Zhang Tianlin Laozu was breaking the 3 restrictive spells on his own, Lu Ping, Xianchan, Xiansan, and Xiansu rushed toward an area covered by 2 restrictive spells. Because there were cultivators from the Blue Sea sect here, Lu Ping had no choice but to hide the flowing sword. He took out the golden scale sword and the landslide and worked together with the other 3 cultivators. The 4 late core forging cultivators attacked with all their might, and the 2 rainbow-colored restrictive spells in front of them started to crumble. Perfected Xianchen's expression changed, and he said, "Not good. There are only 2 more colors left." Perfected Xianchan was an array master, so he naturally had done a lot of research on the restrictive spells that made up arrays. This was also one of the reasons why the 3 great array masters of the North Sea were gathered here. Apart from confirming the exact location of the Yingtian Dojo, they were here to help the Dharma adepts of their sect break the restrictive spells in the dojo. Although the 4 of them had yet to show their results, Perfected Xianchan had already predicted the result. However, this rainbow-colored restrictive spell was based on the protective spell of the entire Yingtian Dojo, and had an extremely strong regenerative ability. After temporarily suppressing the light, Zhang Tianlin and Laozu collected a few treasures from the restrictive spell. Lu Ping and the others hurried over to meet up with Zhang Tianlin and Laozu. Next, Jinling and the others' target was the 4-colored restrictive spell behind the 3-colored restrictive spell that Zhang Tianlin and Laozu had broken. At that moment there was another loud rumble. After Jinling and Zhang Tianlin and Laozu broke a 3-colored restrictive spell, Songhai sects Donghua Laozu and Zhang Xi, as well as another late-stage core forging cultivator from their sect, finally broke a 3-colored restrictive spell. However, at that moment, Donghua Laozu and Zhang Xi did not have the slightest hint of joy on their faces. Chapter 651. Songhai sect's Donghua Laozu was at the peak of the early Dharma stage. He was considered the strongest among the 9 Laozus who had infiltrated the North Sea this time. When he joined forces with his sect's second-generation disciple, Zhang Xi, who was at the peak of the core forging stage, and another 9th-stage core forging cultivator to attack an area covered by a 3-colored restriction formation, the result was even longer than Jinling's Zhang Laozu. What did this mean? If the rainbow restrictions in the Yingtian Dojo were not unequal in strength, it meant that Zhang Laozu's strength alone was probably stronger than Donghua Laozu and Zhang Xi. How could this not make Donghua Laozu's face darken? Even Zhang Xi's expression was ugly. In fact, not only the Songhai sect, but the other sects were also deeply shocked by Zhang Laozu's strength. Almost every Laozu's face flashed with a trace of fear. In the first round, Jinling broke through the 2-colored restriction formation, and 2 areas covered by the 3-colored restriction formation. The Songhai sect only obtained the inheritance of the 3-colored restriction formation, while the Xianling sect was still fighting the 4-colored restriction formation. Among the other sects, the Feiyu sect and Lingu sect chose the wrong area at the first moment. Their Dharma stage cultivators attacked the two-colored restriction formation, wasting their true yuan and dharmic powers. By the time they reacted, Jinling and Songhai sect had already started to break through the four-colored restriction formation, and they had no choice but to break through the three-colored restriction formation in order to open a path to the four-colored restriction formation. Although the Hai Yin sect and Shui Yin pavilion cultivators did not make any mistakes in their choices, their strength was inferior to the Songhai sect. At this time they still had half a restriction formation left. Although the Jade Sword faction and Chongming faction had received Jinling's instructions and rushed directly to the area where the three-colored prohibition formation was located, the strength of the two factions was slightly inferior. Even though Tongjian Laozu was a sword cultivator, and his ability to destroy prohibition formations was stronger than Sanming Laozu, he could only break 2 of the 7-colored prohibition formations. After reuniting with Lu Ping and the other 3, Jinling's group and Songhai sect's group charged towards the 4-colored restriction formations. Meanwhile, with the help of Qian Daofeng, Xianling sect's formation grandmaster, Feng Shutao and Lu Shuheng had already destroyed 2 of the weakened 4-colored restriction formations. Azure Sea sect's Donghua Laozu's team of 3 began bombarding the area covered by the 4-colored restrictive arrays. Due to the increase in the number of restrictive arrays, the cultivators from the various sects no longer had the strength to break the restrictive arrays in one fell swoop. All they could do was to slowly weaken the 4-colored restrictive arrays by launching attacks that were greater than the rate at which the restrictive arrays could recover. Due to that, they had to spend much more time than before. In this way, Azure Sea sect's disadvantage of not having a formation grandmaster or even a formation master was obvious. Unlike Azure Sea sect, Jinling did not attack the 4-colored restrictive arrays immediately. Due to Lu Ping, perfected Xianchan was already prepared for the restrictive arrays in the dojo. He set up a few formation tools on the periphery of the 4-colored restrictive arrays. After perfected Xianchan activated them, a small formation suddenly took shape. Then, like a part of the protective formation of the entire Yingtian dojo, the light screen it formed began to slowly seep into the light screen formed by the 4-colored restrictive arrays. After the light screen of the formation perfected Xianchan set up completely merged with the light screen of the restrictive arrays, the 7 colored lights that were swimming around the surface of the 4 restrictive arrays began to gradually weaken. 2 rays of colorful lights disappeared from each of the 4 restrictive arrays. Now, perfected Xianchan said anxiously, this formation can only last for a moment. As soon as spiritual master Xianchan's voice fell, Patriarch Zhang Tianlin took the initiative to attack. He opened his hands and then suddenly clasped them inwards. His wide sleeves rolled up the vitality that filled the sky, forming a pair of huge wings in the sky. The wings suddenly flapped towards the 4-colored restriction, and the feathers at the front scraped against the restriction light screen, causing the sky to be filled with spiritual starlight. One of the 4 remaining 5-colored restrictive arrays was destroyed in an instant. Before the remaining 3 restrictions could recover, Lu Ping's golden scale sword, landslide, and a purple thunderbolt arrived one after another. They struck the light screen continuously, destroying 2 of the 5-colored lights in one of the restrictive arrays. Immediately after, perfected Xianchan and perfected Xian Su worked together to destroy the remaining 3. This way, other than perfected Xianchan who was unable to attack, because he was controlling the formation, Jinling and the other 4 worked together to destroy half of the restrictive arrays. However, just as everyone was preparing to attack a second time, the remaining 2 incomplete restrictive arrays were replenished by the protective formation and began to recover rapidly. Even though perfected Xianchan tried his best to stop them, when Lu Ping and the others attacked a second time, the restrictive array once again recovered a 5-colored restrictive array. Zhang Tianlin, Laozu, and the others attacked with all their might. Out of the 3 5-colored restrictive arrays, 2 of them were destroyed. At this moment, the restrictive array that Xianling sect was attacking made a cracking sound. LV Shudao pressed his hands in the air and suppressed the 2 rays of light again. Then LV Shuheng took something out of it. After collecting all the treasures in the restrictive array, Xianling sect unexpectedly did not continue to attack the next area covered by the 5-colored restrictive array. Instead, They turned around and attacked the area covered by the four-colored restrictive array. Right after Xianling sect launched their attack, an angry voice rang out. Xianling sect, don't go too far. Linggu sect had just broken through a three-colored area, and originally wanted to break through the four-colored area after this area. Unexpectedly, Xianling sect, which was next to it, beat them to it. The Dharma adept of Linggu sect was naturally furious. LV Shudao protected perfected Qian Daofeng, who was setting up a formation to weaken the restrictive array. He sneered at Linggu sect's cultivators and said, "Didn't we say earlier that the restrictive array depends on who comes first? You can't bully the weak." Xianling sect was the first to see this restrictive array. "Don't tell me that your sect is not going to follow the order we said earlier?" You. Linggu sect's Dharma adept pointed at LV Shudao angrily. Xianling sect's power was far above Linggu sect's. In addition, Linggu sect had previously joined the Songhai sect. Xianling sect and Linggu sect could be said to have a new and old grudge. This time, Xianling sect's actions could be said to be deliberately targeting Linggu sect. However, no matter what, Xianling sect had the advantage now. Even the Songhai sect could not help them now. The Linggu sect's Dharma adept's half-closed eyes flashed coldly, but in the end, he still did not dare to provoke Xianling sect. He turned around and led another late core forging adept, who was also the only formation master that Linggu sect had sent to join the Songhai sect. They walked in the direction of the Songhai sect. In Yingtian Dojo, there were originally only 12 two-colored restrictive arrays. Among them, Qingjian Laozu and Lu Ping had already broken 6. Previously, Lu Ping and the Jinling late core forging adepts had worked together to break 1. Linggu sect and Feiyu sect had each broken 1. After that, all the sects had put all their energy into breaking 3-colored restrictive arrays. The remaining 3 two-colored restrictive arrays were temporarily thrown to the back of their minds. There were only 8 3-colored restrictive arrays left. At this time, the 6 4-colored restriction areas had their own masters. Jinling seemed to be prepared and headed straight for the 5-colored restriction area. Feng Shutao looked coldly at Jinling and the rest. He heard perfected Qian Daofeng's mocking voice. He said, "Jinling can't break through the 4-colored restriction area in one go. They have almost no chance of breaking through the 5-colored restriction area. Even though Jiang Qianlin's strength far exceeds everyone's expectations, it's a fool's dream to think that he can break through the 5-colored restriction area." There were only 4 5-colored restriction areas. After the Blue Sea sect met up with the 2 from the Linggu sect, the 2 sects discussed for a while and joined forces to head towards a 5-colored restriction area. Then the Haiyan sect and the Shuiyan Pavilion, who had broken through the 4-colored restriction area, also joined forces to occupy a 5-colored restriction area. At this time, the Yujian sect and Chongming sect, who had already broken through 2 3-colored restriction areas and 3 2-colored restriction areas, suddenly joined forces and occupied the remaining 5-colored restriction area. Chapter 652. Feng Shutao was currently very flustered. Earlier, Reverend Qian Daofeng had confidently said that it was impossible for the sects to break through the 5-colored forbidden zones. He had thought that it was impossible for the sects to break through the 5-colored forbidden zones. That was why he had occupied the remaining 4-colored forbidden zone, after breaking through the first 4-colored forbidden zone. Because of this, Feng Shutao was rather pleased with himself. However, apart from Jinling, who occupied a 5-colored forbidden zone by himself, the other sects had joined forces and occupied a 5-colored forbidden zone first. Feng Shutao was rather uncertain. Feng Shutao looked at Reverend Qian Daofeng worriedly and said, "Uncle Master, is Jinling and the Azure Sea sect really unable to break through the 5-colored forbidden zone? There's also the Azure Sea sect and the Mistwater Pavilion. If they join forces and have the help of a formation grandmaster, their strength will probably surpass that of Jinling alone." Qian Daofeng looked at Reverend Xianchen and the formation grandmaster of the Mistwater Pavilion, who were working in an orderly manner in the distance. He was rather uncertain, and his previously confident tone gradually changed. According to the current strength of the sects, unless they have some trump cards that they haven't used yet, they probably won't be able to break through the restriction. Feng Shutao's expression changed, and he said, "Uncle Master, have you forgotten about the restriction-breaking talismans? Teacher gave me 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans when we came to the Central Plains this time. Since our sect has them, there's no guarantee that the other sects don't have them too. If they use them now, won't our sect fall behind the others?" Feng Shutao's expression changed and he shook his head. "That's impossible. Even if the sects have treasures like the restriction-breaking talismans, they definitely won't waste them on the 5th forbidden zone. Otherwise, there are still 3 6-colored forbidden zones and a 7-colored central palace. If they don't have the help of the restriction-breaking talismans, then the sects will really enter the treasure mountain and return empty-handed." Feng Shutao's expression relaxed slightly, but he still felt uneasy for some reason. He kept feeling that there was something he had not thought of. Compared to the 4-colored restriction, the 5-colored restriction was several times more powerful. Taoist Master Xianchen had spent a lot of time just setting up the formation, and after activating the formation, each of the 5-colored restriction had only been weakened by one of the restrictions. However, after perfected Xianchen activated the formation, the people from Jinling did not rush to attack. Under the surprised gazes of the various sects, a 5-colored talisman suddenly appeared in Laozu's hand. It suddenly turned into a 5-colored light and swept towards the light screen in front of him. The light barrier suddenly dimmed. Before the cultivators could figure out why Jinling had used such a precious treasure like the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman so early, another 5-colored ball of light appeared in Laozu's hand. Another 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Had Jinling gone crazy? However, when the cultivators from the North Sea saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu's calm expression, they really did not know what Jinling was planning. Could it be that Jinling still had a secret restriction-breaking treasure? This thought flashed through the minds of many cultivators, especially Laozus from the various sections. After 2 more 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans, the 5-colored light barrier was once again destroyed. Jiang Tianlin Laozu suddenly shouted, "Now's the time. Everyone use all your strength to break this light barrier." After saying that, Patriarch Jiang Tianlin patted his chest, and a clear cry soared into the sky. A huge wood luan materialized behind Patriarch Jiang Tianlin, flapped its wings and flew up into the sky. At the same time, Patriarch Jiang Tianlin waved his hands, and 108 green leaves fluttered in the air. The wooden luan flapped its wings, and the leaves were swept up by a gust of wind. The feathers on the wooden luan's wings suddenly turned from illusory to corporeal. This was the first time Lu Ping had seen Jiang Tianlin Laozu use his own dharma and summon 108 magic treasure-like leaves. The wood phoenix arrived above the light barrier and suddenly flapped its wings. 108 feathers shot out from its wings and smashed into the light barrier like 108 sharp blades. Each of the 5 restrictions only had 4 colors left. With Jiang Tianlin Laozu's full power, 2 of the restrictions' 8 colors were extinguished. Following closely after Jiang Tianlin Laozu, Lu Ping used the golden scale sword, mountain crumble, and the 7 treasure thunder gourd to summon a powerful lightning spell. In an instant, Lu Ping's momentum was almost on par with Songhai Sect's enlightened master Zhang Shi, who was attacking another restriction. Even the other sect's great ancestors glanced at Lu Ping's direction. However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's attention was not on the momentum Lu Ping had created. Instead, it was on a colorful restriction that had suddenly disappeared without a trace. His gaze wandered as though he had noticed something. As Lu Ping retrieved all the magic treasures he had unleashed and prepared to attack with all his might, he happened to see Jiang Tianlin Laozu looking at his sleeve. Lu Ping's brows jumped. Ever since the invisible sword was upgraded to a spiritual magic treasure and Lu Ping's cultivation base had improved greatly, there were almost no cultivators who could see the invisible sword's movements from afar. Due to that, Lu Ping gained a deeper understanding of Jiang Tianlin Laozu's strength. Sage Xian Su and Sage Xian Sen's attacks followed closely behind. Unfortunately, the 2 of them did not manage to break the remaining 2 restrictions. The 2 remaining restrictions quickly recovered. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu attacked for the second time, the 2 restrictions almost instantly recovered into 2 restrictions. Compared to the first attack, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's second attack was slightly weaker. However, after his attack, The 3 remaining restrictions were destroyed by Lu Ping's golden scale sword and landslide. The moment Lu Ping attacked, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had already taken a step toward the restriction light curtain. The moment Lu Ping broke the light curtain, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's figure happened to enter the area where the restriction was previously located. Jiang Tianlin's wide sleeves suddenly gathered in the middle, and 108 leaves suddenly formed a green dome in the sky above the area. The 3 rays of light attacked from inside, but they were blocked by the dome. Lu Ping, Sage Xiansan, and Sage Xiansu each went forward to suppress one of the rays of light. Jiang Tianlin Laozu waved his sleeves, and a small space door appeared in front of every item in the restriction. Then a suction force came from the door, sucking in the 3 jade boxes, 3 purple wooden boxes, 6 jade slips, and 4 thick books into the door. Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at Lu Ping and the other 2, then pointed in the direction of Sage Xiansu. Sage Xiansu, who was struggling to suppress one of the rays of light, felt his hand lighten. When he turned his head to look, the ray of light was already in the palm of Jiang Tianlin Laozu's giant hand made of energy. Then Jiang Tianlin Laozu restrained the rays of light suppressed by Sage Xiansan and Lu Ping. At this moment, the sound of the restriction light curtain shattering could be heard again. With the help of the formation Grandmaster of Shuyan Pavilion and Haiyan Sect, Laozu had already broken the restriction light curtain before Azure Sea Sect. Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at Azure Sea Sect and Lingu Sect, who were doing their best to attack the restriction, and observed the progress of the 2 sections. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's mouth revealed a faint smirk. Then he said, "Support Jade Sword Sect and Chongming Sect." Jiang Tianlin Laozu took the lead and rushed towards the restriction that Sanming Laozu and Tongjian Laozu were attacking. Lu Ping and the others followed closely behind. Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu seemed to already know that Jinling would come to help. When Jinling and the others flew over, they tacitly formed an attack formation with Jinling. Previously, under the joint attack of the 2 sects, the number of rainbow restrictions in this area had been suppressed to around 3 rainbow restrictions. Jiang Tianlin Laozu came with the power of the 3 Laozus and 6 late-stage core forging realm masters working together to destroy 2 of the remaining 3 complete 7-colored restrictions. Just as the last 7-colored restriction was restored to 2, the joint attack of the 3 sects came again. The area covered by the 5-colored restriction was finally broken. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's divine sense swept over, and found that there were 16 kinds of treasures behind the restriction. Jiang Tianlin Laozu casually put away 4 kinds of treasures, then looked at Tongjian and Sanming Laozu and said with a smile, "Seniors, according to the agreement, the remaining treasures will be divided equally between the 2 sections." Sanming Laozu's face was filled with joy, but he didn't make a move. Tongjian Laozu hesitated for a moment and said, "How can this be? Previously, it was said that the 3 sects will divide the treasures equally. Your sect's strength is originally above ours. Our 2 sects have already gained an advantage by sharing the treasures in this restriction with Jinling." Jiang Tianlin Laozu waved his hand and said, "Senior Tongjian, you don't need to worry too much. This restriction was first attacked by the 2 sections. I, Jinling, am only helping in the middle. For treasures are enough. Moreover, the 3 sects can't divide the 16 treasures equally. I, Jinling, will give up 1 treasure, and Jade Sword Sect and High Brightness Sect will each take 6. Sanming Laozu and Tongjian Laozu's eyes were filled with gratitude. They cupped their hands towards Jiang Tianlin Laozu and said, "Your sect is righteous. We will definitely report the details of today's matter to our sect." Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "Now isn't the time to talk about this. We should quickly occupy a 6-colored restriction area. The 6-colored restriction area will require the cooperation of our 3 sections." The 3 ancestors leaped into the air and occupied the last 6-colored restriction zone before the Azure Sea Sect and Lingu Sect. Donghua ancestor glanced at the first 6-colored restriction zone that had been jointly occupied by the Water Mist Pavilion and the Ocean Flame Sect. Then, he looked at the second 6-colored restriction zone that had been occupied by the overjoyed Feng Shutao, and the already idle Soaring Feather Sect while Zhanling Sect had yet to occupy it. Finally, he looked at the 3 sects that had assisted the Jade Sword Sect and High Brightness Sect in breaking the 5-colored restriction zone, but had only occupied the last 6-colored restriction zone a few seconds before the Azure Sea Sect and Lingu Sect. Zhangxi Laozu's face was gloomy. Donghua Laozu finally understood. He looked at Zhang Tianlin Laozu and said with a cold smile, "Good, good. Jinling is really good at scheming." Chapter 653. The three six-colored restriction zones were occupied by Shui Yin sect and Hai Yin sect, Xianling sect and Fei Yu sect, and Jinling sect and Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect respectively. As for Songhai sect and Linggu sect, they were seized by Zhang Tianlin and Laozu's group at the last moment, as if they had grasped the timing. This caused the two sects to be completely squeezed out of the competition for the three six-colored restriction zones. Zhangxi Laozu's face was gloomy. Donghua Laozu finally understood at this moment. He looked at Zhang Tianlin and Laozu and said with a cold smile, "Good, good. Jinling is really good at scheming." Donghua Laozu's words made the Laozu's heart skip a beat. They thought about Jinling's performance after entering Yingtian Dojo, and they suddenly realized that Jinling really seemed to know everything about Yingtian Dojo like the back of his hand. After Jinling entered Yingtian Dojo, he first split up the Transcendent Stage and Core Forging Stage cultivators to attack a two-colored restriction zone and a three-colored restriction zone respectively. He broke through the restriction zones almost at the same time, as if he had already calculated the defensive strength of each restriction zone. When they attacked the four-colored restriction zone, Jinling let his allies, Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect, attack the remaining two-colored restriction zones first. At that time, although Fei Yu sect was lucky enough to get a two-colored restriction zone, Songhai sect's ally, Linggu sect, didn't get anything. When it came to attacking the five-colored restriction zone, Jinling took advantage of Xianling sect's second four-colored restriction zone and let Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect attack the last five-colored restriction zone before Xianling sect. This left Xianling sect and their ally Fei Yu sect with no room to interfere. However, Jinling's plan wasn't just that. After attacking the five-colored restriction zone, Jinling turned a blind eye to the exposed six-colored restriction zone and turned to help Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect to attack the five-colored restriction zone, giving Xianling sect and Fei Yu sect the opportunity to occupy this six-colored restriction zone. Zhanling sect, on the other hand, gathered the strength of the three sects and caught up from behind, taking over the final forbidden zone of the six-colored paths before the Azure Sea sect and Linggu sect. This time, however, they had completely eliminated the Azure Sea sect and Linggu sect from the ranks of the contending for the forbidden zone of the six-colored paths. From the beginning to the end, Xianling sect and Songhai sect, which were ranked second and third in the North Sea cultivation world, as well as their allies, had all suffered from Jinling's schemes. Compared to Jinling, their gains were naturally far inferior. On the contrary, Shui Yin Pavilion and Hai Yin sect had a smooth journey and didn't suffer too many setbacks. Hearing Donghua Laozu's question, Zhang Tianlin smiled faintly and said, "Tianlin doesn't dare to agree with Mr. Donghua's words. Fellow Daoist Feng was the first to break through the four-colored restriction zone, but he didn't choose the five-colored restriction zone. Instead, he continued to attack the four-colored restriction zone. This has nothing to do with my sect. As for why your sect didn't occupy the six-colored restriction zone, you can only blame your sect's lack of strength. After all, our sect was the first to break through the five-colored restriction zone, but we didn't immediately occupy the six-colored restriction zone. Under such circumstances, your sect still couldn't occupy the six-colored restriction zone before us. You can only blame your sect's lack of strength. Who else could you blame?" Donghua Laozu was rendered speechless, while the other Laozu suddenly came to a realization. It was just as Zhang Tianlin Laozu had said. Jinling hadn't schemed against the other sect's cultivators. What Jinling had shown from the beginning was their luck, strength, and familiarity with these restrictions. That's right, familiarity. Jinling seemed to be far too familiar with Yingtian Dojo. It was as if Jinling had already accurately predicted the layout and strength of the restrictions in Yingtian Dojo. That was why he was able to arrive before the Azure Sea sect at the last moment. Could it be that Jinling had really come to this Yingtian Dojo before? Almost all the Dharma projections Laozu had the same thought, but they immediately dispelled it. If Jinling had really entered the Yingtian Dojo, there wouldn't have been so many restrictions left for the cultivators from the various sects in the North Sea. Perhaps Jinling had obtained an ancient record that described the interior of Yingtian Dojo. However, This record didn't seem to have recorded the exact location of Yingtian Dojo, which was why Jinling hadn't been able to find the location first. In the blink of an eye, the various Laozu's thoughts were more or less the same. They had once again found a reason for Jinling to rejoice, but at the same time it was a pity. They were glad that Jinling hadn't found the Yingtian Dojo in advance, but it was a pity that Jinling seemed to be able to reap the biggest reward among the various sects this time. After arriving at the area of the 6 colored restrictions, the various sects all slowed down the pace of their attacks. Compared to the 5 colored restrictions, the defensive power of the 6 colored restrictions had once again increased qualitatively. Even a powerful formation like Jinling's, which consisted of 3 early Dharma adepts and 6 late core forging adepts, was unable to break through the light curtain of the restrictions in a short period of time. In the area covered by the 3 6-colored restrictions were 3 small palaces that surrounded and protected the central palace. Sage Jiang Tianlin took advantage of the time when Sage Xianqin was setting up the weakening formation to use some kind of remarkable power to investigate the palaces that were covered by the restrictions. He then said to Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu, "The palaces inside should be a large-scale space instrument. After breaking through the restrictions, the palace instrument will belong to our sect, and the treasures in the palaces will be divided equally among the 3 sections. What do the 2 of you think?" Tongjian Laozu laughed heartily and said, "Your sect has contributed the most. We have nothing to say." Sanming Laozu also nodded and said, "Brother Tongjian is right." At this time, when the Songhai sect and Linggu sect saw that they had no hope of interfering with the 6-colored restrictions, they could only angrily and helplessly investigate the space around the training hall. After the various sects entered the training hall, almost everyone's attention had been attracted by the area covered by the light curtain of the restrictions. They did not pay much attention to the empty space around the training hall. At this time, the Songhai sect and Linggu sect had no choice but to investigate the surroundings, hoping to pick up the loot and make up for their own losses. Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw that the 2 sects were investigating the surroundings and knew that the fact that there was a medium-sized spirit mine in the training hall could not be hidden from the cultivators of the 2 sections. Thus he gave Lu Ping a look. Lu Ping already knew what the 6 Dao's forbidden art was going to do. He stomped on the light barrier 3 times in a row, as if he wanted to test how strong the barrier's defense was. 3 rays of bluish-purple light fell down the light curtain, causing the ground near the light curtain to tremble. Muffled thumping sounds traveled all the way into the ground. At this time, from the edge of the dojo, the sturdy late-stage core forging cultivator from the Azure Sea sect suddenly cried out with great joy. The various sects all looked over. However, at this time, the various sects had already reached the final stage of their preparations for the 6-colored restriction. As for the fortunes of the Azure Sea sect and Linggu sect, the various sects could not be bothered to seriously investigate it. Only the people of Jinling's sect looked in the direction of the exclamation. They knew that the small spirit mine had been discovered by the Songhai sect and Linggu sect. However, so what if they discovered it? Could the Songhai sect take away this spirit mine? The prelude to breaking through the 6-colored forbidden area had turned into a show for the 3 great formation masters of the North Sea. The 3 of them set up formation tools all around the forbidden area. Now that they had ample time, the formations that the 3 formation masters had set up were undoubtedly much more intricate and complicated. It was likely that their formations were also much more powerful than before. Among the 3 formation masters, the formation master of the Shuyan Pavilion had the cooperation of a formation master from the Hai Yen sect. Thus, the speed at which he set up the formation was the fastest among the 3. As for Sage Qian Daofeng of Xianling sect, he was worthy of being the oldest formation master in the North Sea cultivation world. With the power of one person, the speed at which he set up the formation was second only to the formation master of the Shuyan Pavilion. Sage Xianqin was the slowest among the 3. However, at this time, the speed at which he set up the formation did not matter much to the various sects' gains in the Yingtian training hall. Looking at the last central palace that was covered by the 7-colored restrictions, it was not something that 2 or 3 early Dharma adepts could break through together. The 7-colored restrictions were known as the most powerful protective restrictions in the cultivation world. Of course, the prerequisite was that the restrictions had to be controlled by someone. Jiang Tianlin Laozu coughed and said to Tongjian Laozu and Saming Laozu, "Everyone, it's time to show everyone what you have." With that, he took out the last 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman from his storage artifact. This time Tian Shui Laozu had given Sage Xuanju a total of 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. After Sage Xuanju had been injured and replaced by Lu Ping, he had given these 3 talismans to Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Jiang Tianlin Laozu had used up 2 of the talismans in one go when he was breaking through the 5-colored restriction area. As a result, Xunling sect had become the only sect in the North Sea to have a complete 5-colored restriction area. Tongjian Laozu was a straightforward person. Seeing that Jian Tianlin Laozu had taken out the restriction-breaking talisman, he also took out his own restriction-breaking talisman. Saming Laozu hesitated for a moment and said, "Martial nephew Tianlin, if we use the restriction-breaking talisman now, what should we do with the last central palace?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, "I'm afraid you've forgotten that the restriction-breaking talisman can only be broken through by brute force. Only the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman can be effective." Saming Laozu slapped his forehead in annoyance and said, Yes. If we don't use it now, I'm afraid this restriction-breaking talisman will be useless in the dojo." At this time, the various sects finally began to show their respective treasures. Xianling sect's Feng Shutao took out a 3-foot 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman, while Fei Yu sect took out a magic artifact that seemed to be useless in the eyes of the cultivators present. However, this magic artifact seemed to be effective in breaking through restrictions, so it was recognized by Feng Shutao. Haiyan sect and Shuoyan Pavilion each had 2 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. Their total number even exceeded that of Xunling sect and the other 2 sections. However, these 3 sects had 3 transcendence Laozu. When breaking through restrictions by brute force, their overall strength far exceeded that of Haiyan sect and Shuoyan Pavilion. Chapter 654. After setting up the formation, perfected Xuanzhen's expression was solemn. He stood there for a long time without saying a word, as if he was thinking about something. In the other 2 areas, whether it was Qian Daofeng or the Shuoyan Pavilion's formation grandmaster and master-level assistants, their progress in setting up the formation was above perfected Xuanzhen's. However, for some reason, there were no sounds of violent breaking of the formation in these 2 areas. Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw perfected Xianchen frowning as if calculating something, so he asked junior sister, "Is there something wrong?" Perfected Xianchen heaved a long sigh of relief. "Senior brother, I'm afraid we underestimated the difficulty of protecting the 6-colored forbidden zone. According to the estimation of the light screen when we set up the formation, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to break this light screen." Tongjian Laozu panicked and said, "How is that possible? There are 3 Dharma laws Laozu here. If we can't break it, then the other 2 areas can't be broken either." Saming Laozu saw that perfected Xianchen was a little unhappy and hurriedly said, "Brother Tongjian, disciple Xianchen is a formation grandmaster. Since she said it can't be broken, then it really can't be broken. Haven't you noticed that the other 2 areas haven't started breaking the restrictions yet?" Tongjian Laozu chuckled. He was an impatient person, and things came and went quickly. Disciple Xianchen, the old man, spoke too quickly. "Don't blame him." Perfected Xianchen nodded slightly. She was a formation grandmaster, and her status in the North Sea was not lower than that of ordinary Dharma laws adepts. She had her own way of doing things. After thinking for a while, perfected Xianchen continued, "This formation is considered to be doing its best. I'm confident that I won't lose to the 2 from Xianling sect and Shuoyan Pavilion, but at most each colored restriction will weaken 1 restriction. Although the 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans have some effect, it won't do much against the 6-colored restriction. At most 1 or 2 restrictions will be destroyed. However, the 6-colored restriction's recovery ability far exceeds the 5-colored restrictions. I've calculated that with our combined power, I'm afraid we'll just barely be able to match the weakened restriction's recovery ability." Bronze Sword Laozu said with some disappointment, "What should we do?" Sa Ming Laozu, on the other hand, laughed somewhat self-deprecatingly and said, "At least the other two places might not be able to break the Jinji. It's just that this way, the sects will definitely have to form alliances again. After a round of haggling, who knows how the disputes will turn out?" Jiang Tianlin and Laozu looked at the two groups of people who were discussing in the distance. Their eyes flickered, and no one knew what they were thinking. Although Jiang Tianlin Laozu's seniority was lower than Tongjian Laozu and San Laozu, whether it was cultivation or Jinling behind Jiang Tianlin Laozu was the leader. San Laozu saw that Jiang Tianlin was silent for a long time. So he asked, "Martial nephew Tianlin, do you have any ideas?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled slightly and said, "I'm afraid that martial uncle San Ming's guess just now is going to become a reality." San Laozu's expression changed. He looked at the two groups of people in the distance, but he couldn't see anything, so he asked with some doubt, "Martial nephew Tianlin, how do you know?" As if to confirm Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words, just as his voice fell, the cultivators of Songhai sect and Linggu sect who seemed to have found some treasure at the edge of the dojo flew back again. In mid-air, the 5 rays of light paused for a moment, as if they were discussing something. Then, Linggu sect's Laozu brought Zhangxi to the Shuiyan Pavilion and Haiyan sect's camp, while Donghua Laozu brought the array master of Linggu sect and the strong cultivator to Xianling sect's camp. Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't directly answer Sa Ming Laozu's question. Instead, he said, "Xianling sect, Feiling sect, Shuiyan Pavilion, and Haiyan sect, these 4 sects are unable to break through the restriction, so they will definitely ask Songhai sect and Linggu sect to rejoin them. This way, the power of these 2 restriction areas will increase to 3 Dharma adepts, and the formation masters of both sides will each have a formation master assisting them. At the same time, don't forget that Songhai sect should also have many treasures that can break restrictions. When we broke the 5-colored restriction, because we underestimated the protection of the 6-colored restriction area, we had already used up 2 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. Now, with the combined power of the 3 sects, we only have these 3 talismans. This Songhai sect has a good plan. They want to reap some benefits from each of the 2 restriction areas. This way, even if Songhai sect and Linggu sect don't occupy the 6-colored restriction area, the benefits they will obtain after coming down will not be lesser." After Donghua Laozu said something to Feng Xiutao, Tongjian Laozu took out 2 5-colored talismans from his storage artifact and handed them to Feng Xiutao, whose face was filled with joy. After Feng Xiutao received the talisman, the Shuiyan Pavilion and the Haiyan sect had already started attacking the light barrier with the help of the Linggu sect's old ancestor and Zhangxi. Soon after, the Xianling sect's side also started attacking. For a moment, the Yingtian dojo was once again filled with the loud rumbling of spells. This time, even Jiang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be a little hesitant. Tongjian Laozu thought that Jiang Tianlin Laozu couldn't make up his mind, so he said loudly, "Who cares if it can break the restriction or not? We have to give it a try first." Lu Ping knew that it wasn't that Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't want to give it a try, but he was hesitating whether to use the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman in his hand. That was Jinling's trump card to break the restriction in the Yingtian dojo. Lu Ping looked at the 7-colored restriction palace in the center and pondered for a moment. Finally, he made up his mind. He stepped forward and said, "Martial uncle, perhaps this disciple has a way to weaken the restriction's protection a little more after using the restriction-breaking talisman." Jiang Tianlin Laozu's eyes lit up when he heard this. He said, "What else do you have?" When Lu Ping heard Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words, he knew that Jiang Tianlin was also reluctant to use the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman on the 6-colored restriction. He smiled in his heart and said, "This disciple once learned a set of restriction-breaking secret technique from martial uncle Liang Xianfeng. Perhaps it can weaken this light curtain again. At that time, our speed of breaking the restriction may be faster than the restriction's recovery speed." Before Jiang Tianlin Laozu could say anything, Daoist Xianchen said happily, "Senior brother Liang taught you a restriction-breaking secret technique? Why didn't you say so earlier?" Sa Ming Laozu smiled and said, "I was wondering why your sect didn't let martial nephew Liang Xianfeng participate in this operation this time. With martial nephew Liang Xuanfeng's attainments in the restriction-breaking secret technique, I think the trip to Yingtian Dojo this time will be even smoother. However, this disciple of your sect has actually received martial nephew Liang Xuanfeng's secret technique. I think it's possible. Lu Ping didn't expect perfected Liang Xianfeng to be so famous in the restriction-breaking technique. Even a Dharma stage cultivator like Saming Laozu respected him. However, he knew the real reason why perfected Liang Xianfeng didn't come was because he and Chu Xuanqing had reached the critical stage of advancing to the Dharma stage. Therefore, they had to cultivate in seclusion in the True Spirit Grotto Heaven at the top of Tianling Mountain. Otherwise, Jinling would never lack perfected Liang Xianfeng, a restriction-breaking expert, in his seclusion exploration. Zhang Tianlin Laozu also seemed to have a sudden realization. He seemed to have some understanding of what happened between perfected Liang Xianfeng and Lu Ping in the East Sea, but he obviously didn't think about this just now. Therefore, Zhang Tianlin Laozu didn't hesitate anymore and said to perfected Xianchen, "In that case, let's give it a try." The difficulty of breaking the six-colored restriction was obviously beyond everyone's expectations. Although the cultivators who occupied the other two areas started to Jinling to break the restriction first, the light curtain of the two restrictions was still standing after a full 10 minutes. It was just that the luster looked slightly dimmer. Perfected Xianchen activated the array formation, and then focused all his energy on suppressing the restriction light curtain. Zhang Tianlin Laozu activated 3 5-colored restriction breaking talismans in a row, and 3 5-colored rays of light brushed against the light curtain one after another. Meanwhile, Lu Ping, who had been preparing for a long time, surged all the quintessential essence in his body and fully executed a set of restriction-breaking secret techniques from the mysterious purple jade slips he obtained from Failing Mountain. Although perfected Xuanqin's quintessential essence was restrained by the array formation beneath his feet, his eyes couldn't help but twitch when he saw the restriction-breaking secret technique that Lu Ping's hands were like butterflies fluttering through flowers. Restrictions and array formations were fields that were extremely closely related. As an array formation grandmaster, perfected Xianchen had dabbled in restriction-breaking secret techniques. He usually had many discussions with perfected Liang Xianfeng, who was proficient in restriction-breaking techniques. Naturally, he could sense something from Lu Ping's restriction-breaking secret technique. However, he didn't say anything. Instead, he lowered his head and continued to control the array formation beneath his feet with all his might. Lu Ping hadn't used this secret technique before because he was afraid that perfected Xianchen would see through it and suspect him. However, now that he was about to return empty-handed from a treasure trove, Lu Ping couldn't care too much. After all, he couldn't use the precious 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman on something like this. The secret technique that Lu Ping was using now was much longer and more complicated than the restriction-breaking secret technique that he had used when he entered the Yingtian Dojo. Naturally, its power was much stronger than before. However, the conditions for using this secret technique were extremely harsh. It could only be used on a restriction that had been weakened by perfected Xuanqin's array formation in advance. Every time Lu Ping made a seal, he would leave an inextinguishable trace of spirit qi in the air. When the 108 seals were completed, the 108 spirit qi imprints formed a beautiful strange bird with strange 5-colored tail feathers in the air. The strange bird let out a long cry, and the 5-colored tail feathers behind it swept towards the light curtain in front of it. The light curtain that had already been weakened by 2 colors shook violently, and countless spirit stars exploded and danced in all directions. When Zhang Tianlin Laozu saw the large 5-colored bird formed by Lu Ping's restriction secret technique, he couldn't help but be startled. He seemed to be thinking about something. However, after the large bird swept its tail feathers towards the light curtain, Zhang Tianlin Laozu's eyes suddenly shot out 2 rays of light that were 3 feet long. He saw something through the dancing spirit stars in the sky, and then his face lit up with joy. He said, "What a good restriction-breaking secret technique. This time we might be able to enter the other 2 places first." Copper Sword Laozu was the most impatient. When he heard this, he swung the copper sword in his hand and took the lead to slash at the light curtain. After that, Zhang Tianlin Laozu and Sanming Laozu attacked almost at the same time. Perfected Xian Su and the others were not willing to fall behind. Only Lu Ping and perfected Xianchen did not participate in the first wave of attack from the 3 sections. Perfected Xianqin naturally had to control the formation under his feet in order to weaken the light curtain as much as possible. After using the restriction-breaking secret technique just now, Lu Ping seemed to have consumed a lot of his strength. He didn't have the strength to attack at full strength for a while. Lu Ping took a deep breath and a purplish-blue light flashed across his face. The true essence in his core space immediately flowed into his veins, quickly replenishing the true essence he had consumed from casting the secret technique. The golden scale sword swayed in the air and a purple thunderbolt fell from the sky. The golden scale sword transformed into a four-legged serpent shrouded in purple thunderbolts from head to toe. The serpent then charged towards the light barrier. This attack was much more powerful than ordinary great sword techniques. This was also the first time that Lu Ping had thought of combining the lightning power of the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash and Lu Ping's sword techniques into one. He didn't expect that it would be so powerful. Then Lu Ping took out a talisman weapon from his storage device. It was the one that he had given to Debao previously. It was unknown when Lu Ping had taken it back. Poor Debao had only used this talisman weapon once since he had obtained it. Lu Ping placed this talisman weapon, which had been infused with enough qi, on Landslide. Then he raised Landslide in midair. Landslide fell, and because Lu Ping had infused it with qi, it turned into a bluish-purple light, which greatly increased the power of Landslide. With a loud bang, this attack was almost as powerful as a normal attack from a Dharma adept. Although Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu had long heard of this most outstanding third-generation disciple of Jinling, and the strength that he had displayed during the process of breaking the restriction had surprised the two Laozu, Lu Ping's two consecutive attacks still made the two Laozu look at him in a different light. Bronze Sword Laozu slashed out with his sword and destroyed a rainbow restriction. Then he asked Zhang Tianlin Laozu, who was next to him, "Has this kid really only trained for less than 100 years? Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled faintly and said, "He's just borrowing the external power of a talisman weapon. It's not his own strength." Although Copper Sword Ancestor didn't see the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash, he saw the talisman weapon stuck on the landslide. Although he was still surprised, at least his suspicions about Lu Ping's monstrous offensive prowess were lessened. Thanks to Lu Ping's mysterious restriction-breaking secret technique, and Jinling and the other two sects were originally stronger than the other sects. Although Jinling was the last to attack the six-colored restriction area, after a full hour, they had already caught up and surpassed Xianling sect, Shui Yen Pavilion and Hai Yen sect. As Zhang Tianlin Laozu's Dharma with Luan circled in the sky, its 108 feathers formed a strangling formation that covered the entire light curtain. Then a series of crisp sounds could be heard, and the light curtain was finally broken. After continuously attacking the light curtain with all his strength, even someone as strong as Zhang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be a little short of qi in his body. However, before everyone could enjoy the joy of breaking the restriction, a strange cold snort suddenly came from the small palace in front of them. Zhang Tianlin Laozu's expression suddenly changed, and then there was a trace of surprise. Then this trace of surprise was well hidden by Zhang Tianlin Laozu. He ignored Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu's surprise at the cold snort coming from the palace, and walked into the palace first. There was a trace of urgency in his footsteps. Chapter 655. In this world, the great adepts of the late Dharma stage had a lifespan of at most 1,500 years. Beyond that, there were those who had achieved the celestial soul. If such beings did not leave this world, they would only have a lifespan of 2,000 years. In Lu Ping's impression, those who could live for 4,000 years were only spirit herbs, spirit trees, and spirit demons like the dragon pagoda tree. Therefore, when Lu Ping heard the cold snort coming from the palace, he felt his heart palpitate for no reason. Could it be that there was a cultivator from the Yingtian sect who had lived for more than 4,000 years hidden in this palace? However, when he saw Zhang Tianlin Laozu enter the palace without any hesitation, followed by Tong Jian and Sanming Laozu, Lu Ping and the others no longer had any doubts. They followed behind the three Laozu cultivators and walked into the palace. The people who heard the cold snort were not the only ones who heard it. Feng Xiutao Donghua Laozu and the others in the distance also heard it clearly. Feng Xiutao's expression immediately changed when he heard the cold snort. When he turned his head to look, he saw Jiang Tianlin's figure disappear into the palace. Feng Xiutao's eyes twitched, but he tried his best to maintain a calm expression. He then focused all his attention on the light screen in front of him. Perhaps after he broke this light screen, there would also be a cold snort coming from inside. However, when that happened, he would have to snatch it from the cultivator from the Songhai sect first. However, none of this escaped Donghua Laozu's eyes. Donghua Laozu was confused about what that cold snort was, but he knew that it was definitely not a cultivator from the Yingtian sect who was still alive in the palace. In the world of cultivation, he had never heard of anyone who could extend their lifespan to 4,000 years, not even those who had achieved a celestial soul. Donghua Laozu turned to Feng Xiutao and asked, "Nephew Feng, do you know what that cold snort was?" Feng Xiutao faked a smile and said, "How would I know? Could it be a surviving Yingtian faction cultivator?" Feng Xiutao chuckled dryly as he said this. Donghua Laozu was cursing in his heart, but there was nothing he could do about it. He had already made up his mind that if he heard a cold harumph from within the light barrier, he was going to rush in at once to see what it was. The Donghua elder casually slammed a spell onto the light screen, and his eyes inadvertently glanced over. He noticed that the corners of Feng Xiutao's mouth were moving slightly, while the Dharma adept of the Fei Yu sect on the other side was nodding his head almost imperceptibly. It was obvious that the two of them were discussing something and had already reached an agreement. Donghua Laozu turned his head, and his expression darkened. He was sure that the two of them had been discussing the cold snort, and from the looks of it, Feng Xiutao was obviously aware of the cold snort, and it was obvious that he was discussing something with the Dharma adept of the Fei Yu sect to target Donghua Laozu. After Jiang Tianlin Laozu entered the palace, he realized that this small palace was indeed a spatial ritual implement. However, this palace was not like the House of Gold, which was like a small world. Instead, it was like a palace. The only difference was that the space within this palace was far larger than the one outside. Jiang Tianlin Laozu quickly passed through the palace and headed deeper into the palace. Along the way, the lights of various treasures danced in the air, but Jiang Tianlin Laozu ignored them. Tongjian Laozu and Saming Laozu were dazzled by the dozens of lights that danced in the air the moment they entered the palace. At their level of cultivation, there were not many treasures that could catch their attention. However, among the dozens of lights, there were clearly many that had caught their attention. While the two of them were dazed, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had already disappeared into the depths of the palace. Tong Jian and Saming Laozu finally managed to break free from the temptation of the treasures. They looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Then they quickly chased after Jiang Tianlin Laozu. When Laozu and Saming saw the lights flying in the palace, they were unable to control themselves, let alone Xian Su, Xian San, and the other late-stage core forging cultivators. Comparatively speaking, when the two late-stage core forging cultivators from the Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect saw the lights, their expressions were far more shocked than the people from Jinling. This also showed that Jinling's foundation was far more profound than these two sections. This caused the cultivators from the two sects to be inferior to cultivators of the same level as Jinling in terms of cultivation and knowledge. When Lu Ping saw the lights flying in the sky, he couldn't help but be stunned. Although his knowledge was not inferior to that of Taoist Xian San and the others, any late-stage core forging cultivator would not have a better expression than Lu Ping when they saw 7 or 8 magic treasures that were obviously at the spirit-nurturing level flying in the air. Lu Ping's eyes flashed with a green light as he looked at a scarlet light. The treasure that was wrapped in the light was obviously a cauldron that looked like a pill furnace. Lu Ping was 100% sure that it was a top-grade pill furnace. Lu Ping roughly examined the dozens of lights. The lowest grade treasure among them was also a spirit-connected mystic treasure. There were also a variety of treasure boxes, jade bottles and the like. Although he couldn't examine them for the time being, judging from the intensity of the light shrouding these treasures, the items inside were probably more precious than the spirit-connected mystic treasures. As the three patriarchs had already made their way deep into the palace, the cultivators from the three sects did not move to collect the treasures without the approval of the three patriarchs. Although the treasures were tempting to look at, none of them moved to collect them. At this moment, a cold snort came from the depths of the palace. This cold snort was even louder than the previous one. It even impacted everyone's divine sense. Moreover, this cold snort seemed to carry a trace of anger. Everyone's expressions changed, but they weren't too worried. After all, the three Laozus had gone together. Moreover, there were no sounds of fighting coming from the depths of the palace. Everyone waited here for about the time it took to drink a cup of tea, but there was still no news from the depths of the palace. Unable to restrain themselves, they discussed going to the depths of the palace where the three Laozus had gone to take a look. However, after they advanced for a few dozen feet, an invisible barrier suddenly blocked their way. Lu Ping held the golden scale sword in his hand and stabbed forward. Lu Ping stabbed the invisible barrier more than 3 feet into it before it rebounded. The two late core forging cultivators from Yujin sect and Chongming sect looked like they had seen a ghost. Just now, the cultivator from Yujin sect had touched the invisible barrier first and had tried to use the flying sword in his hand to cut through the barrier. However, the flying sword had only pierced 7 or 8 inches before it could go any further. Sage Xian-san and Sage Xian-su, on the other hand, seemed to have expected this. In order not to be shocked by their own juniors, they acted as if they hadn't seen anything. Lu Ping scratched his head and asked Sage Xian-chan with some uncertainty, "Uncle Master, is this barrier the famous cultivation barrier of the cultivation world?" Sage Xian-chan's knowledge of arrays and restrictions was clearly far above Lu Ping's. Hearing this, he nodded and said, "Yes, the cultivation barrier can determine a cultivator's level of cultivation based on the aura around them. This is a Dharma stage cultivation barrier. Only those who have reached the Dharma stage can pass through this barrier without any obstacles. Cultivators below the Dharma stage will be blocked by this barrier." Sage Xian-chan paused and then said pointedly, "Actually, although this cultivation barrier is strange, it is not unbreakable. If a person's level of cultivation is not enough, but their strength is comparable to that of a Dharma stage cultivator, it is not impossible to break this cultivation barrier through violent means." For some reason, Lu Ping heard a hint of provocation in Sage Xian-chen's tone. At this moment, a low grunt came from the depths of the palace after the cultivation barrier was broken. This grunt was different from the previous cold grunt. It seemed to contain a trace of fear. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what had happened in the depths of the palace. However, from these 3 sounds, it seemed that the 3 Laozus situation was not too bad. After a while, Lu Ping asked hesitantly, "Uncle Master Xian-chan, if we combine our strength, we can definitely match that of a Dharma stage cultivator. Can we break this cultivation barrier?" Sage Xian-chan opened his mouth and was about to speak, but he suddenly felt that the cultivation barrier in front of him was strange. When he turned to look, he saw Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu walk out from the depths of the palace. However, Lu Ping and the others did not see Zhang Tianlin Laozu. Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Jinling easily passed through the cultivation barrier. Everyone hurriedly asked the two about what had happened in the depths of the palace. The cultivators in Jinling did not know why Zhang Tianlin Laozu did not come out with the two of them. Bronze Sword Laozu looked at Sage Xian-san and the others. For some reason, an envious and emotional expression flashed across his face. He said slowly, "Nephew Zhang Tianlin has encountered a great opportunity. Don't be impatient. I believe Nephew Zhang will come out soon." Bronze Sword Laozu had just finished speaking when the space in the entire palace suddenly shook violently. When the shaking subsided, Lu Ping looked to his side strangely. Then he sent the flying sword in his hand forward. The flying sword pierced tens of feet away without any obstruction. Lu Ping hurriedly kept the golden scale sword and said, "The cultivation barrier has disappeared." Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu looked at each other. When they looked into the depths of the palace, they found that a space door had suddenly opened beside them. Zhang Tianlin Laozu stepped out of the door. He did not know if it was an illusion, but when he saw Zhang Tianlin Laozu, Lu Ping felt that Zhang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be covered with a mysterious veil. The aura around him was like turbulent waves, fluctuating unsteadily. Bronze Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu cupped their hands at Zhang Tianlin Laozu and said, "Congratulations, Nephew Zhang, for your great improvement in your cultivation. You will soon reach the mid-Dharma stage." Old ancestor Zhang Tianlin bowed to the two of them and said, "Thank you, seniors, for letting me have it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to refine this Dharma Laksana 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 Laksana. Bronze Sword Laozu and Saming Laozu's faces turned red. Bronze Sword Laozu smiled bitterly and said, Nephew Jiang, you don't have to flatter us. Neither of us can refine that Dharma power soul. Only you can suppress it with your strength. Being able to obtain it is your opportunity. It has nothing to do with the two of us. Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled and did not dwell on this issue. He reached out and pointed at the dozens of balls of light that had stopped flying in the sky. These balls of light flew in front of everyone and landed neatly. Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, We agreed that this spatial instrument belongs to our sect, and the other gains will be split equally. Just now I was lucky enough to obtain a Dharma power soul, so I have already picked one treasure first. Both of you can choose one of these dozens of treasures, and we will split the rest equally. Bronze Sword Laozu smiled and said, All right, then I won't stand on ceremony with the old man first. Saming Laozu's face was also filled with joy. Among these dozens of treasures, he had already taken a fancy to a few of them. Now that Zhang Tianlin let the two of them pick first, he could take the most valuable treasure among the treasures that he had taken a fancy to. Bronze Sword Laozu's face was full of smiles as he directly put away the crimson top-grade alchemy furnace that Lu Ping had seen just now. Lu Ping felt a burst of pain when he saw it. And the treasure that Saming Laozu took made Lu Ping a little surprised. It was actually an ancient zither. When Lu Ping saw this ancient zither, his heart skipped a beat, as if the qi in his body was triggered. When Zhang Tianlin Laozu saw Saming Laozu put away the ancient zither, he raised his eyebrows unconsciously. Obviously, this ancient zither was also quite important to Zhang Tianlin Laozu. After being picked by Saming Laozu, he also felt a bit pained. This time, Lu Ping's mysterious restriction-breaking secret technique had made a great contribution. Therefore, the treasures in the palaces that the three factions had previously discussed were to be divided equally. After that, the two Laozu urged Jinling to choose first. Zhang Tianlin Laozu declined slightly and then agreed. After a few rounds of selection, dozens of treasures were divided among the three factions. Everyone had their own gains. Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said, The matter here is over. We should also go out and see how the other two six-color forbidden areas are being cracked. Tongjian Laozu was stunned and said, Aren't we going to occupy the colorful palace in the center first? Saming Laozu smiled a little impatiently and said, Brother Tongjian, the six-colored restriction is already so difficult. The seven-colored restriction is a total of 49 colors. How can our three factions break it? When everyone left the palace, they saw Zhang Tianlin Laozu patting the stone pillar at the entrance of the palace. The entire palace suddenly trembled, and the palace slowly rose. Then, it gradually shrank to the size of a palm and disappeared into Zhang Tianlin Laozu's sleeve. When everyone looked at the other two palaces that had already been broken, they saw that the cultivators of the other six factions had long disappeared. They must have entered the palaces. At this time, Zhang Tianlin turned to Tongjian and Saming Laozu and said, Since there is no way to break the restriction of the colorful central palace for the time being, we will go to the surroundings of the dojo and see what treasures the Blue Sea sect cultivators found. Chapter 656. Jinling naturally knew what treasure the Blue Sea sect had discovered. On the ground at the edge of the dojo, Bronze Sword Laozu discovered the spirit stone vein that was covered by a restriction from afar. Bronze Sword Laozu was surprised and said, I didn't expect there to be any treasures in this border area. Bronze Sword Laozu swung his two fingers like a sword, and a sword chi smashed the simple restriction on the ground into pieces. A mine entrance appeared in front of everyone. This is... Bronze Sword Laozu looked at the mine entrance on the ground. With his divine will, he could easily discover the secret hidden in the depths of the mine entrance after breaking the restriction. Saming Laozu was also a little surprised and sighed regretfully. It's actually a medium-sized spirit stone vein. It's a pity that we don't have a Grotto Heaven magic treasure, so there's no way to move it now. Bronze Sword Laozu said, Even if we don't have a Grotto Heaven magic treasure and can't take this mine away, we just have to move it out of this Grotto Heaven. Sa Ming Laozu shook his head and said, "There's not enough time. To move this mine, we have to set up an extremely complicated relocation Dharma formation." Sa Ming Laozu glanced at perfected Xianchen and said, "With martial nephew Xianchen around, there's no need to worry about this. It's just that we don't have enough time. I'm afraid that before we can set up the Dharma formation, the cultivators of the other sects will come out from the other two palace spaces." Bronze Sword Laozu wanted to say something, but Sa Ming Laozu seemed to know what he was going to say, so he said, "So what if we can move this spirit stone vein out? This place is thousands of miles away from the North Sea. This mine can't be moved back to the North Sea. Will the sects still have to send cultivators to guard the Yingtian mountain range for this spirit stone vein?" Bronze Sword Laozu looked at the mine in front of him with eyes full of regret, but he also knew that Sa Ming Laozu's words made sense. Patriarch Zhang Tianlin smiled at the two of them and said, "Seniors, please don't be impatient. Maybe we can find a way to move this spiritual mineral vein today. However, if we want to move such a spiritual mineral vein, I'm afraid it will be beyond our power to do it alone without the help of the two of you." Bronze Sword Laozu perked up and said, "Oh, what's the method? Tell me." Sa Ming Laozu was puzzled. He said, "Jinling I Tianlin Jinling Sect Sword Spirit Stone Vein Jinling Sect Jinling Tianlin Jinling Yang and Jinling Spirit and Yang Tianlin Zheng Sun Sect Xiang Tianzhou Sect Moon Sect Xiang Will Yang Yang Sect and Zong." However, he did not show his doubts on his face. As an ally of Zhenling Sect, Zhenling Sect's strength would directly affect the stability of Chongming Sect's position in the North Sea's cultivation world. At present, it was very beneficial for Chongming Sect. Each of the sects in the North Sea had their own independent inheritance system and traditional sphere of influence. Although Jinling's strength and expansion attracted Yujian Sect and Chongming, it would inevitably affect his allies in the future. When that time came, it was unknown whether Chongming and Yujian Sect would be able to maintain their independence. Zhang Tianlin Laozu looked at the silent Sa Ming Laozu with a faint smile. Sa Ming Laozu was shocked and quickly suppressed his thoughts. He was now very clear that, based on the current situation, Chongming Sect could only follow closely behind Jinling, which was getting stronger day by day. As for the future, Sa Ming Laozu smiled bitterly in his heart. It would depend on the development of the sect. Ancestor Zhang Tianlin glanced at the silent Sanming sect's ancestor with a faint smile. The Sanming sect's ancestor was startled and hurriedly suppressed his thoughts. He was now very clear that the Chongming sect could only follow closely behind the increasingly powerful Jinling sect. At the very least, the Chongming sect's immediate benefits could still be guaranteed. As for the future, the Sanming sect's ancestor smiled bitterly in his heart. It would depend on the sect's own development. Ancestor Zhang Tianlin stretched out his hand, and a bronze mirror glowing with green light appeared in his hand. Sa Ming Laozu looked at the bronze mirror in Zhang Tianlin Laozu's hand and suddenly thought of something. His expression changed, and he said in shock, "Yesterday, the three Laozu in the Yingtian mountains seemed to have joined forces to fight against one person. It seemed to be for the Yingshu mirror. Could it be that this bronze mirror, impossible?" The bronze sword Laozu jumped up, but saw Zhang Tianlin Laozu smiling and nodding, so his words became a little awkward. He said, You really broke through the siege of three Dharma adepts of the same level, and even injured Changhe Laozu, who was at the peak of the early Dharma stage?" Sa Ming Laozu's heart sank. He had already believed that Zhang Tianlin Laozu was the person from last night. Although Zhang Tianlin Laozu's level of practice was the same as his level of practice was much higher than that of other adepts of the same level. Previously, when everyone had joined forces to attack the light screen, although the two of them were amazed by Zhang Tianlin Laozu's strength, it was only now that the two of them realized that Zhang Tianlin Laozu had actually been holding back. Last night, when the four Laozu were fighting, Sa Ming Laozu and the others naturally did not miss it, and had long been hiding at the side to watch. However, because the various sects were afraid of exposing their tracks and alerting the enemy, they could only watch from afar. Zhang Tianlin Laozu's secret technique of hiding his own aura was really brilliant, so no one had recognized that the practitioner who had snatched the treasured mirror of abundance was actually Jinling's Zhang Tianlin. The reason why Sa Ming Laozu smiled bitterly was not because of the difference between him and Zhang Tianlin, who was also at the early Dharma stage, but because Jinling had someone like Zhang Tianlin here. At least until Zhang Tianlin fell, Chongming, Jade Sword, and the other sects could only be loyal allies of Jinling. Thinking about the Dharma soul that Zhang Tianlin Laozu had just inherited in the palace space, which made Zhang Tianlin Laozu's cultivation and strength greatly improved, Sanming Laozu smiled bitterly in his heart. As for the future, Sanming Laozu looked at Lu Ping, who had cultivated for less than 100 years, and sighed in his heart, time, fate. Copper Sword Laozu did not think so much. Seeing the treasured mirror of abundance in Zhang Tianlin Laozu's hand, although his face was full of envy, he said anxiously, "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and set up the relocation formation. Otherwise, when the people from the other sects come out, I am afraid it will be a different story." Zhang Tianlin Laozu was not in a hurry, but turned his head and nodded at Lu Ping. Lu Ping understood and stamped his foot, and a bluish-purple light penetrated into the ground. Copper Sword and Sanming Laozu did not know what Lu Ping's intention was at first, but after a while, the two of them seemed to have discovered something, and their faces showed a surprised expression. Debao's fat body jumped up from the ground, and he suddenly felt several tyrannical auras around him shrouding him. His instinct urged him to quickly hide behind Lu Ping, and then he began to slowly look around. Unexpectedly, Debao's sudden appearance in the Yingtian dojo, and when he was hiding underground, even Fa Xiang Laozu did not notice his existence, causing everyone to stare behind him. When Debao turned around, he happened to see countless shining divine lights staring at him. Coming from the nature of the spirit-seeking mouse, Debao's brain shrank, and he desperately wanted to hide his body behind Lu Ping to avoid everyone's eyes. However, although Lu Ping was also considered burly, he still could not hide Debao's fat body. Sanming Laozu looked at the timid Debao. Although he was surprised at Debao's outstanding talent in the earth escape art, he still looked a little worried. Martial nephew Tianlin, although this disciple of your sect is extremely talented in the earth escape art, once he is discovered by the cultivators of the other sects, I'm afraid that Xianling sect and Songhai sect will use Jinling as an excuse to break the sect's oath to attack him together. Copper Sword Laozu also said, originally, your sect had 4 core forging cultivators, but now it has become 5. I'm afraid it's really not appropriate. Although Yujin sect and Chongming sect were Jinling's allies, these two sects were independent and not under Jinling's control. If Jinling really brought 5 core forging cultivators into the Yingtian dojo, it was obvious that he had broken the rules set by the sects of the North Sea. Even if Chongming sect and Yujin sect were on Jinling's side, they would not allow Jinling to trample on the rules of the North Sea's cultivation world. Zhang Tianlin Laozu looked at the two of them in confusion. When he looked at Debao, he suddenly frowned. Then, when he saw the golden necklace hanging around Debao's neck, he suddenly realized something and asked Lu Ping in surprise, "Demonization bracelet. You actually have this treasure?" Only then did Lu Ping remember that Debao still had the demonization bracelet that Lu Ping had given to him. No wonder Sanming Laozu and Copper Sword Laozu showed dissatisfaction. It turned out that they had regarded Debao as Jinling's disciple. The name of the demonization bracelet not only surprised Zhang Tianlin Laozu, but also Copper Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu. The fat, timid boy in front of them was actually a demon cultivator? However, when Lu Ping took off the golden necklace from Debao's neck, Copper Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu were even more surprised. Spirit-seeking mouse? Copper Sword Laozu looked as if he had seen a ghost and said, "Spirit-seeking mouse can also cultivate to the transformation stage?" Although Sanming Laozu didn't say anything, the expression on his face also showed that his mood at the moment was probably not much different from Copper Sword Laozu's. Different from Copper Sword and Sanming Laozu's surprise that Debao, who was born as a spirit-seeking mouse, could cultivate to the transformation stage, Zhang Tianlin Laozu's interest was completely attracted by the demonization bracelet in Lu Ping's hand. "Have you met the cultivators of the Spirit Beast sect?" Zhang Tianlin Laozu asked solemnly. Lu Ping didn't know why Zhang Tianlin Laozu looked so solemn, but he still shook his head and said, "This is what I obtained previously." After Copper Sword and Sanming Laozu heard the conversation between the two, they realized that compared to a spirit-seeking mouse that cultivated to the transformation stage, the power behind the demonization bracelet was more shocking. Jiang Tianlin Laozu knew that the previously that Lu Ping mentioned referred to Yingtian Dojo. So he nodded and said, "The demonization bracelet is magical and ingenious. I think you have more than one. Remember to give one of them to your master when you go back." Although Lu Ping didn't know why Jiang Tianlin Laozu gave such an order, he still agreed. At this time, Debao had already handed an array disc to Daoist Xianchan. Daoist Xianchan followed the diagram and checked the array that Debao had previously set up in the spirit mineral vein. After finding that there were no mistakes, he said to Jiang Tianlin Laozu, "Senior brother, you can start." Chapter 657. Lu Ping explained Debao's identity as his spiritual pet to Tong Jian and Saming Laozu, dispelling the two Laozu's suspicions that Jinling had violated the agreement between the sects in the North Sea. Then he told them about how Jiang Tianlin Laozu deliberately lagged behind when he entered the Yingtian Dojo, and almost crashed into the spatial crack. He threw Debao from his sleeve into the ground the moment he landed in a sorry state, thus hiding it from Laozu. Saming Laozu finally couldn't suppress the doubts in his heart and couldn't help but ask, "Could it be that your sect already knew that there would be a spirit stone vein in the Yingtian Dojo? You're actually so well prepared? Not only that, after entering the dojo, your sect seemed to have a good understanding of the distribution of restrictions in the dojo. It was also under your sect's guidance that my Chongming and Jade Sword sects were able to have a far more abundant harvest in the dojo than Linggu and Feiyu sects." Lu Ping shook his head and said with a smile, "We don't have the ability to predict the future. So how could we know the situation in the dojo? We just prepared for a rainy day and made various preparations. As for my spiritual pet, the spirit-seeking mouse, it was precisely because he had the opportunity to advance to the core forging stage that he had more talent in searching for spiritual treasures than ordinary spirit-seeking mice. That's why I played a little trick and begged Marshal Uncle Tianlin to bring him in. I didn't expect him to really discover this mine." Saming Laozu was still skeptical, but at this moment, he heard spiritual master Xuanshen's words. Jiang Tianlin Laozu then said, "It would be extremely difficult for me to quickly move this spirit stone vein into the treasure mirror's grotto heaven by myself. I'll have to ask the two seniors to help me. After we return to the North Sea, the Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect can take a total of 40% of the spirit stone vein's production." Tongjian Laozu and Saming Laozu showed a trace of joy on their faces. Tongjian Laozu said loudly, "All right, then my Jade Sword School will take 20% of the spirit stone vein." Saming Laozu also said in a deep voice, "Then it's a deal between us three sects." Of course, the two sects wouldn't obtain a total of 40% of the spirit stone production, just because they helped Jiang Tianlin Laozu relocate the spirit stone mine. Jinling would definitely cause the other sects to object if he took the spirit stone mine. At that time, the two sects would naturally support Jinling for their vested interests. Jiang Tianlin Laozu raised the Yingshu treasure mirror high, and a cyan light shot out from the mirror, shining straight into the mine. Daoist Xianchen activated the array disc in his hand, which was used to guide the earth vein. The array disc also fell into the mine and disappeared. Immediately afterward, there was a burst of shaking in the mine. With a puff, a cyan light suddenly ejected from the ground. Then, as the ground shook more and more violently, like a chain reaction, cyan light pillars ejected from different areas on the ground one after another, spreading everywhere as if there was no pattern. Lu Ping knew that the direction of these cyan light pillars was actually the direction of the spirit stone vein underground. These cyan light pillars were like steel nails, firmly locking the spirit stone vein. Then, with the support of the array arranged underground, the entire spirit stone vein could be completely moved into the Yingshu treasure mirror. Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw that there were no more light pillars coming from the ground, so he shouted to the other two Laozu, "Seniors, now is the time." The three Dharma idol Laozu attacked together, and three incomparably abundant pillars of spirit energy formed above the spirit stone vein. Then the three pillars of spirit energy intertwined with each other, and finally, the three of them joined forces to form a giant three-colored hand that seemed to cover the sky. The giant three-colored hand fell, and 5 three-colored fingers inserted into the ground. Then the giant hand clenched tightly, and the ground suddenly cracked. The entire spirit stone vein was suddenly separated from the ground. On the ground, Lu Ping and the others looked at the giant hand, which seemed to be completely disrupting the world. The giant hand suddenly lifted up, and a series of roars came from the ground. The ground shook more and more violently, and the entire spirit stone vein slowly rose from the ground. A series of spatial cracks continued to emerge from the ground. Not good, the migration of this spirit stone vein has affected the stability of this space. This kind of forced migration will greatly reduce the existence time of the Yingtian Dojo's space. The three bright old ancestors said worriedly as he looked at the grayish spatial fragments that were revealed after the spiritual stone vein gradually rose up. We can't care so much anymore. Even if we put down this spiritual vein now, we won't be able to repair the entire space where the dojo is located. We can only collect this spiritual vein before the space of the Yingtian Dojo completely collapses. Only then will we have gained something. Jiang Tianlin Laozu said coldly, and then the spiritual ether in his hand shone brightly. At this time the sky-treasured mirror had already expanded to the size of a bright moon, and the green light completely enveloped the entire giant three-colored hand. At this moment, one of the two remaining palaces after the previous six-colored restriction was broken suddenly burst out with a violent explosion. After that, the roar was endless, as if a chaotic battle had broken out in the space of the palace. The entire palace even began to tremble slightly. Obviously, as a spatial artifact, although the space in it was large enough, it seemed to be unable to withstand the battle that broke out in the palace. This also meant that the cultivation of the two parties fighting in the space had reached the Dharma manifestation stage. Looking at the crumbling palace that was about to collapse, Tongjian Laozu let out a strange cry and said, "It's actually the palace that Shuyan Pavilion, Haiyan sect, and Linggu sect tried to break just now." Obviously, the Laozu of the various sects in the palace finally had an internal conflict. However, Jinling had obviously been looking forward to this situation for a long time, because Jiang Tianlin Laozu was very sure that if the two Dharma manifestation stage cultivators of Shuyan Pavilion and Haiyan sect joined forces, even if the Dharma manifestation stage cultivator of Linggu sect had the assistance of Zhang Shi, he would definitely not be a match for them. Now that the battle between the two sides had lasted for such a long time, it was obvious that a chaotic battle had broken out inside. In other words, the real internal conflict was probably between Shuyan Pavilion and Haiyan sect. Lu Ping and the others all showed joy on their faces. Obviously they had already thought of this. The alliance between Shuyan Pavilion and Haiyan sect had been going on for a long time. The two sects were friendly with each other, and had always advanced and retreated together in various matters of the North Sea cultivation world. The cultivators of the two sects also often cooperated with each other, and had a tacit understanding when dealing with certain matters. The seamless cooperation between the two sects had always been a headache for Xianling sect and now Jinling. Because whether it was Shuyan Pavilion or Haiyan sect, in terms of individual strength, there was a big gap between them and Xianling sect, Jinling sect and Songhai sect. However, once the two sects joined forces, apart from Jinling, no other sect was a match for them. This showed the power of the two sects' alliance. Now that the Dharma manifestation adepts of the two sects had obviously fallen out because of something and even started fighting, this might be a great opportunity for Jinling to break up the alliance between the two sections. As for what kind of treasure could make Laozu of the two sects fall out so mercilessly, Tongjian Laozu and Saming Laozu could not help but look at Jiang Tianlin. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression was a little solemn as he said, "I'm afraid it's also a Dharma manifestation soul." At this moment, a long howl suddenly came from another palace. The howl was full of surprise, and the high-pitched howl contained surging spiritual essence dermic powers. Jinling and the others could clearly hear that it was Feng Shutao's howl. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression changed, and he said, "Everyone attack. We must absorb this spirit stone mine into the treasure mirror before the cultivators from the other sects come out of the palaces." Everyone also knew that the situation was urgent. Once the cultivators from the other sects came out of the palaces, the three sects' plan to monopolize the spirit stone mine would definitely not be realized. This time Lu Ping took the lead. The bluish-purple spiritual essence turned into a strange four-legged dragon, that rushed into the spirit chi pillar that formed the three-colored giant hand. A thin bluish-purple spiritual essence line was faintly discernible in the three-colored spirit chi pillar. It was unexpectedly not assimilated by the spiritual essence of the three Dharma manifestation stage cultivators. Immediately after Lu Ping, the other 5 late core forging stage cultivators also made their moves. They transformed their spiritual essence into different kinds of magic power and integrated it into the three-colored spirit chi pillar to increase the power of the giant hand as much as possible. However, whether it was perfected Master Xian San, who was about to condense his golden core, or the late core forging stage cultivators of the other 2 sects, after their spiritual essence entered the spirit chi pillar in the form of magic power, without exception, their spiritual essence was assimilated into the three-colored spirit chi pillar. Only Lu Ping's bluish-purple spiritual essence line remained firm at the edge of the three-colored spirit chi pillar. Since it was not assimilated by the spiritual essence of the 3 Laozu, what did this mean? It meant that the quality of the spiritual essence that Lu Ping had cultivated during the core forging stage was extremely high. It meant that the quality of the spiritual essence in Lu Ping's body was not inferior to that of a Dharma manifestation stage cultivator. The spiritual essence of a late core forging stage cultivator might be insignificant, but when the spiritual essence of 6 late core forging stage cultivators were added together, and these 6 late core forging stage cultivators were the elites of their respective sects, their power was not inferior to that of a Dharma manifestation stage cultivator. The spiritual essence that was held by the giant hand was slowly being absorbed into the Yingshu cave by the Yingshu treasure mirror. At this moment, the Shuyan Pavilion, the Hai Yen sect, and the Linggu sect's palaces were finally unable to withstand the endless roars, and the space inside suddenly collapsed. A ball of white light shot up into the sky, followed closely by the 3 Dharma adepts. As they flew towards the ball of white light, they continued to exchange blows. Numerous spells crisscrossed each other, and the spiritual chi that emanated from them caused cracks to appear in the entire space of the hall. Jiang Tianlin Laozu patted his chest. Immediately, a small wooden bird swelled up in the wind, swooped down with its sharp claws, grabbed the half of the earth vein exposed outside the mirror, and loosened its grip on the mirror. An earth-shattering boom rang out from the mirror. The entire mirror trembled in midair before falling to the ground unsteadily. At this moment, an exasperated roar came from another palace. Jiang Tianlin, how dare you! Donghua Laozu flew out of the palace with a menacing aura, and a streak of purple-golden light shot out from his body at an even faster speed, flying toward Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who appeared to be in an extremely feeble state after activating his avatar with all his might to draw the spirit stone mine into the boundless void cave. Chapter 658. Just as the purplish gold light was about to strike Jiang Tianlin Laozu's body, Copper Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu suddenly burst forward, and a copper sword and 3 balls of light shot out from the hands of the 2 Laozu. Amidst a loud explosion, the purplish gold light was blocked by the joint efforts of the 2 Laozus, but Donghua Laozu was a peak early Dharma adept after all, and although this furious attack was blocked by Copper Sword Laozu and Sanming Laozu, the 2 of them still involuntarily took a few steps back. After this attack, Donghua Laozu's forward momentum was also stopped. However, in the instant that Donghua Laozu was stopped, the Yingshu jeweled mirror, which had been trembling continuously after swallowing the spirit stone mine, suddenly stopped trembling. The smooth surface of the mirror suddenly shone towards Donghua Laozu, and a green light shot towards Donghua Laozu. Donghua Laozu instinctively felt that this light was dangerous, but Jiang Tianlin Laozu's timing was too ingenious. At this moment, Donghua Laozu's body was blocked, and it was difficult for him to move. Donghua Laozu activated the inner yuan in his body and forced his body to move a foot to the left, and the inner yuan in his body suddenly surged like a raging sea, causing Donghua Laozu's face to instantly turn red. Even so, Donghua Laozu was still unable to completely avoid the green light from the Yingshu jeweled mirror, and the right half of his body was covered by the green light from the shoulder down. Donghua Laozu felt the right half of his body go numb, and the inner yuan in the blood vessels on that half of his body seemed to be frozen, and his entire body looked like it was paralyzed. Right at this moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu, whose face was pale due to the depletion of his quintessential essence, suddenly opened his eyes, and his right palm abruptly slapped in the direction of Donghua Laozu. The void suddenly seemed to be compressed, and it was directly transmitted from Jiang Tianlin Laozu to Donghua Laozu. Donghua Laozu wanted to evade, but he was unable to completely control the right half of his body, even as he struggled to break free from the true essence in his body. At least a third of the true essence in his body had been frozen within the meridians of the right half of his body. Just as Donghua Laozu was about to be struck by Jiang Tianlin Laozu's palm, a purplish-black color suddenly flashed across Donghua Laozu's face, and a mouthful of blood was coughed up by Donghua Laozu, and the right half of his body that had been sealed immediately regained its freedom. In the face of the giant palm in the air, how could Donghua Laozu dare to take it head-on? He immediately turned around to evade, but Donghua Laozu had just turned around when his expression changed again, and he had no choice but to forcibly twist his body once more. His internal organs that were already injured became even worse. A dark blue sword image flashed past the direction the Donghua ancestor was about to dodge. Even though the Donghua ancestor had already noticed it beforehand, he was still unable to completely dodge this dark blue sword image that flashed and vanished in the end. The clothes on his left upper arm were sliced open by a 3-inch wide wound, and a wound that was so deep that bones could be seen suddenly split open on the surface of his skin, causing fresh blood to gush out and instantly drench his sleeve. Donghua Laozu retreated far away, and he wiped his left arm with his right hand, instantly stopping the bleeding from his wound. Only then did he turn his head to look at Lu Ping, who was standing beside Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Jiang Tianlin Laozu poured out a crimson pill from a jade essence bottle that Lu Ping had handed to him, and he swallowed it. His originally pale face instantly regained some color. Donghua Laozu glanced at Lu Ping, then looked at the abundant void treasured mirror that was hovering above Jiang Tianlin Laozu's head. At this moment, the mirror had already regained its original simplicity, and it was clear that the spirit stone mine had been completely moved into the abundant void treasured mirror. Donghua Laozu asked coldly, "Is this the abundant void treasured mirror that Changhe Laozu of the Abundant River sect claimed to have lost last night?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu quickly regained the vital energy in his body with the help of the Dharma manifestation stage pill that Lu Ping had refined, and he smiled as he replied, "That's right, it is indeed the abundant void treasured mirror, but it wasn't stolen from the Abundant River sect. Instead, this mirror was originally a mystic realm that I was lucky enough to discover." Donghua Laozu nodded, then turned to look at Lu Ping again as he said coldly, "The shapeless sword technique. Who would have thought that your esteemed sect had even obtained the complete inheritance of the Fei Ling sect's great divine sword technique?" Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu both looked at Lu Ping in shock. This sword technique had been a rather famous one in the Fei Ling sect, but after the Fei Ling sect had been destroyed, many of its inheritances had been lost, and this sword technique had not been passed down for thousands of years. Who would have thought that Jinling would be the one to obtain it? A loud rumble came from behind Donghua Laozu, and the palace that Donghua Laozu had been in suddenly rose into the air. It then shrank rapidly before landing in the hands of Feng Shutao, who had just flown out of the palace. A hint of unwillingness flashed across Donghua Laozu's eyes, but he soon narrowed his eyes and suddenly said in a loud voice, "Martial nephew Feng Shutao, Jinling intends to monopolize a mid-sized spirit stone mine. What do you think?" "What?" Feng Shutao, who was in mid-air, suddenly flashed, and when he reappeared, he was already standing next to Donghua Laozu. A ferocious aura immediately swept towards Jinling. Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu's expressions changed drastically, and they exclaimed in shock, "The peak of the early Dharma stage. How is this possible?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu did not know what kind of miracle medicine Lu Ping had given him, but in just a short period of time, the inner yuan in his body had already recovered by 70%, and it was still recovering at a steady rate. Jiang Tianlin Laozu glanced at Feng Shutao and said coldly, "You've completely integrated the essence of that Dharma power spirit into your own inner yuan. Even so, your level of training has greatly increased, but how much of it will still help you break through to the late Dharma stage and become a great adept in the future?" Feng Shutao's expression changed, and then he laughed coldly and said, "At least there is no longer any obstacle for me to break through to the mid-Dharma stage. At least my abilities have greatly improved, and at least there is no one in the Yingtian temple who is a match for me now. As for becoming a great adept, who knows what will happen in a few hundred years?" Zhang Tianlin Laozu laughed coldly and did not say anything. Donghua Laozu, who was beside him, hesitated for a moment before he composed himself and said to Feng Xiutao in a low voice, "Martial nephew Feng, that Zhang Tianlin is the one who snatched the Yingshu treasured mirror from Laozu of the Yinghe triad last night." Feng Xiutao's expression changed, and an aura of anger and despair suddenly surged from the bottom of his heart. He had inherited the Dharma power spirit in the space and used the fastest method to increase his level of training, also that he could defeat Zhang Tianlin in one fell swoop. However, he did not expect that even though he had inherited the Dharma power spirit, and his level of training had greatly improved, he would suddenly realize that Zhang Tianlin's abilities were already beyond his imagination. Moreover, Zhang Tianlin had also inherited the Dharma power spirit. However, unlike Feng Xiutao, who was eager for quick success, Zhang Tianlin had chosen the most reliable method of inheritance. Although it would not be of much help to his level of training right now, it would be very beneficial for him in the future. 3 early Dharma Laozu, one of whom was at the peak of the early Dharma stage, had been suppressed by Zhang Tianlin in one fell swoop. Zhang Tianlin had even injured the strongest of them, Changhe Laozu, and then left with ease. Even if Feng Xiutao were to push his level of training to the peak of the early Dharma stage, he would not be able to achieve such a level of ability. How could this not infuriate him? Ever since Feng Xiutao had entered the Dharma stage, it seemed as if fate had played a joke on him. Originally, he had been very ambitious, but he was first defeated by Zhang Tianlin, who was as famous as him after entering the Dharma stage. Then, he was defeated again by Lu Tianling, who had been weaker than him before entering the Dharma stage. As for Mei Tianqin, who had always been at odds with Lu Tianling and Jinling, after returning to Jinling, she first fought with Lu Tianling, and it seemed like they were evenly matched. After that, she was separated by the other Dharma adepts in Jinling. However, when the indignant Mei Tianqin heard about what had happened to Feng Xiutao, she was instantly overjoyed. She immediately went up to Feng Xiutao and fought him again. Unfortunately, Feng Xiutao was burned by Mei Tianqin's 7-colored spirit fire, and had no choice but to escape. In an instant, Feng Xiutao became the laughingstock of the Dharma adepts in the North Sea training world. The famous North Sea twins of the past had actually fallen to such a state after entering the Dharma stage. Actually, Feng Xiutao was not weak. Although he had only entered the Dharma stage for a short period of time, in Xianling's sect, other than a few mid-Dharma adepts, none of the early Dharma adepts were a match for him. Even among the early Dharma adepts of other sects, Feng Xiutao's strength was rarely a match for him. Otherwise, Xianling's sect would not have allowed him to infiltrate the Central Plains and join forces with the other sects to open the Yingtian dojo. Unfortunately, the rising Jinling was clearly more fortunate than him. The 3 most outstanding adepts among the second generation of Jinling disciples were all extremely talented, and had surpassed Feng Xiutao in terms of strength. However, the 3 of them had chosen Feng Xiutao to be their touchstone after entering the Dharma stage in a fit of pique. Hence, Feng Xiutao's tragic fate was sealed. Feng Xiutao wholeheartedly wanted to wash away the humiliation he had suffered from the 3 times he had lost. After inheriting the Dharma soul, how could Feng Xiutao not know that Zhang Tianlin's method was the safest and most beneficial method of inheriting the Dharma soul? However, he could not wait, and he did not want to wait any longer. Hence, he gave up on the method of inheriting the Dharma soul that might have helped him advance to the late Dharma stage in the future. Instead, he chose the most direct and violent method of inheriting the Dharma soul, but it was also the fastest way to increase his strength in a short period of time. In the depths of his heart, he wanted to compete with Zhang Tianlin, even if it was only a temporary victory. Donghua Laozu saw that Feng Xiutao had not spoken for a long time, so he said sternly, "Zhang Tianlin, that mid-sized spirit stone vein is in the Yingtian dojo, so it should belong to the sects of the North Sea. You Jinling are taking it all for yourself. Don't you think you're being too greedy?" "That's right." A muffled sound rang out, and another burly late-core forging cultivator from the Songhai sect who had been following behind Donghua Laozu all this while said in a low, muffled voice, I was the one who first discovered this spirit stone vein, so if we're talking about who should own it, it should belong to the Songhai sect. Donghua Laozu's expression changed, and he was just about to turn around and scold him when Jiang Tianlin laughed coldly and said, "What a joke. Since the Songhai sect was the one who first discovered this spirit stone vein, why didn't you tell the other sects about it just now? I'm guessing that you've already decided to take it all for yourself. Now that our 3 sects have gotten here first, you're trying to say that all sects should own it. How can it be that easy? Mr. Donghua, you're a senior cultivator of the North Sea world after all. Don't you think you're being too shameless by doing this?" Chapter 659. The Saming Laozu and the Tongjian Laozu sects had a total of 40% of this spirit stone mine. If the North Sea sects divided this spirit stone mine, the Yujian and Chongming sects would definitely not be able to get such a share. Hence, the two of them looked at each other and said in unison, "That's right. Since this spirit stone mine has already been taken by Jinling, it belongs to Jinling. If the Songhai sect was the first to discover it, why didn't you move it? How could the Azure Sea sect be relocated?" Old ancestor Donghua cursed loudly in his heart. How precious were abode magic treasures. The number of abode magic treasures possessed by each sect in the Northern Sea could be counted on one's fingers, and they were all used as places of inheritance. They couldn't be used easily, so how could they possibly allow cultivators to easily carry them around? Feng Shutao did not care about this. Now that his strength had improved greatly, all he wanted was to make things difficult for Jinling. Or rather, he wanted to use every possible way to get back at Jiang Tianlin for the humiliation he had suffered. Feng Shutao said coldly, "I don't care what the Songhai sect was thinking at the time, but now that the spirit stone mine is in your hands, Jiang Tianlin, it is impossible for you to take it for yourself. I think the North Sea sects will not let you, Jinling, have a second mid-sized spirit stone mine for yourself." Jiang Tianlin laughed coldly. "You Feng Shutao are trying to represent the North Sea sects? At least the Yujian sect and Chongming sect are not under your command. As for the others," Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at the 3 Laozu from the Mistwater Pavilion, Haiyan sect, and Linggu sect, who were fighting in the distance and said mockingly, "I don't know what you, Feng Shutao, can do to stop the fight there." At this time, the space in the 3rd palace had been completely destroyed by the battle between the 3 Laozu. Not only did the Mistwater Pavilion and Haiyan sect, the 2 traditional allies, turn against each other, but even the Dharma adepts of the Linggu sect were also trying to get a share of the spoils. Just as Feng Shutao and the others were reminded by Jiang Tianlin to look at the 3 people fighting, Donghua Laozu suddenly shouted, "Oh no!" He had already turned into a stream of light and rushed toward the battle. When everyone looked over again, they saw that perhaps because the 3 of them were fighting over the aspect soul and none of them were willing to let the other obtain it, the aspect soul finally lost control of itself under the impact of the battle between the 3 of them. In an instant, it broke away from the battle and flew in another direction. Donghua Laozu and Saming Laozu were also fighting over the Dharma. Laozu Laozu and the Laozu. Saming Laozu and Saming Laozu. Laozu and the Laozu sect thought. Laozu and Saming Lao, and Saming Laozu and Ming and Tianlin, and Laozu Tian finally lost. Laozu Tongjian Laozu and Saming Laozu were also very tempted to fight over the Dharma soul. However, Jiang Tianlin said, "These 3 people are fighting over the Dharma soul, but they didn't expect it to be taken away by someone else." Tongjian Laozu and Saming Laozu were stunned. When they looked up, Zhang Shi had suddenly appeared in front of the Dharma soul. The Dharma soul crashed into Zhang Shi's chest and disappeared. "Brat, how dare you!" Among the 3 Laozu, the Mistwater Pavilion and the Haiyan sect's Laozu saw that the Dharma soul in their hands had flown away. They were furious and raised their hands to attack Zhang Shi. Although the Linggu sect's Laozu was also very displeased with Zhang Shi's method of taking advantage of the situation, his expression changed several times. In the end, he didn't attack Zhang Shi, but he also didn't help Zhang Shi because he was his ally. The moment the Dharma soul appeared, Zhang Shi stood still like a puppet with a broken string. He watched as the attacks of the 2 Laozu hit him, and Zhang Shi was about to turn into nothingness. At this moment, Dongwa Laozu suddenly appeared in front of Zhang Shi. He pushed his hands forward, and 2 flying shuttles flew out from Dongwa Laozu's palms. They suddenly turned into 2 ferocious wolves in midair, and they bit at the 2 Laozu's attacks. Boom boom. 2 loud sounds rang out in succession. The 2 wolves collapsed and the 2 flying shuttles flew back. However, the attacks of the Mistwater Pavilion and the Haiyan sect's Laozu was also blocked by Dongwa Laozu alone. Zhang Shi stood motionlessly behind Dongwa Laozu. However, the aura around him became stronger and stronger, and the fluctuations of his aura became more and more obvious. He's going to break through to the Dharma manifestation stage. Feng Xiutao followed closely behind. When he saw Zhang Shi's current situation, his expression changed and he shouted loudly. Zhang Shi's cultivation level had already reached the peak of the core forging stage. Originally, with his cultivation level, the Azure Sea sect would definitely let him go into seclusion and peace, just like Liang Xianfeng, Chu Xuanqing, Spiritual Master Xuanzu, and the others in Jinling, and they would definitely not let him take the risk in Yingtian Dojo. However, Zhang Shi had strongly requested to go to Yingtian Dojo, and the Azure Sea sect's Laozu Dojo had no choice but to let him come. Zhang Shi's status in the Azure Sea sect was special. It was even higher than Jiang Tianlin Laozu's status in Jinling before he had broken through to the Dharma stage. After all, when Jiang Tianlin Laozu Dojo was at the peak of the core forging stage, he was only the head of the 3 truths and 4 spirits. At least there were 6 other cultivators in Jinling, which made Jinling look more like a gathering of heroes. Zhang Shi, on the other hand, was at the top of the Songhai sect. Among the second-generation disciples of the Songhai sect, Zhang Shi felt lonely at the top. This was also why when Zhang Shi proposed to come to the Yingtian Dojo, not only did no one from the second generation compete with him, even the Dharma adepts of the Songhai sect could only let him be. Zhang Shi's level of cultivation was already 1 step away from breaking through to the Dharma stage. After he obtained the Dharma Power Soul, the huge and pure inner yuan contained within it was quickly refined by Zhang Shi. Just as Dongwa Laozu was trying to stop the 2 Dharma adepts, Zhang Shi had refined a small portion of the pure inner yuan, allowing Zhang Shi's level of cultivation to begin the final push towards the Dharma stage. Feng Xiutao had originally wanted to take advantage of the situation, but he did not expect to run into this situation. Zhang Shi was strong and powerful. Among the late core forging adepts, he was one of the few who could catch up to him and Jiang Tianlin. Now that the Songhai sect was about to gain another Dharma adept, he thought about how Jinling sect had been suppressing Xianling sect all these years, and how the merged Songhai sect had also begun to challenge Xianling sect's position in the North Sea. How could Feng Xiutao allow the Songhai sect to gain another Dharma adept to narrow the gap between the 2 sects? Feng Xiutao shouted angrily. As he reminded the 2 Laozu of the Shuyan Pavilion and the Haiyan sect, he had already thrown a treasure in his hand at Zhang Shi, who was behind Dongwa Laozu. Obviously, he wanted to interrupt Zhang Shi's advancement process. Despicable Feng Xiutao. The old man will never forgive you. Dongwa Laozu shouted angrily. He hurriedly sent out a wave of qi to deflect Feng Xiutao's treasure. At the same time, a pair of flying shuttles once again blocked the attacks of the 2 Laozu from the Shuyan Pavilion and the Haiyan sect. After all, Dongwa Laozu did not have the strength that Jiang Tianlin Laozu could fight against 3 people at once. Even though he was also at the peak of the early Dharma stage, he was still overwhelmed by the attacks of the 3. Brother Lingyun, please help the old man. Dongwa Laozu had no choice but to plead with the Linggu sect's Laozu. The Linggu sect had just left Xianling sect's camp and joined the newly risen Songhai sect. Although Zhang Shi's previous actions had infuriated Lingyun Laozu, the 2 sects were still allies. Moreover, the Linggu sect had already left Xianling sect's camp once. If they were to fall out with the Songhai sect again, then the Linggu sect would no longer have a place to stand in the North Sea training world. No sect would be willing to accept an ally that constantly changed sides. Lingyun Laozu sighed to himself as he used the spirit-nurturing treasure in his hands to block the Dharma adepts from the Feiyu sect who were rushing over to help Feng Xiutao. At the same time, a muffled groan came from behind Lingyun Laozu. Donghua Laozu was finally unable to contain the injuries in his body under the attacks of the 3 Dharma adepts, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Originally, with Donghua Laozu's abilities, even if he was surrounded by 3 people, he should not have been defeated so quickly. However, Zhang Shi was standing there like a target, not moving at all. Donghua Laozu had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue to fight the 3 people head-on, so that the hope of his sect's rise to power would not be destroyed just like that. At this time, Jinling and the others had become the ones watching the show. Although Donghua Laozu was fighting left and right, he still kept a part of his attention on Jinling and the other 2 sects in the distance. Donghua Laozu knew that before Zhang Shi woke up, Jinling was already the key to the Songhai sect's success in this trip to the Yingtian dojo. Even if this hope was extremely slim, Feng Xiutao struck out with his palm and once again caused Donghua Laozu to spit out a mouthful of blood. However, Donghua Laozu still stood in front of Zhang Shi to protect him. Feng Xiutao shouted angrily, "Donghua, do you really want to die?" Donghua Laozu spat out a mouthful of blood and spat at Feng Xiutao. He said viciously, "At most, we will perish together." The old man does not believe that after the old man self-destructs his core space, the Yingtian dojo will still be able to exist in this crack in space. Donghua Laozu's face was filled with viciousness, and this caused the expressions of Feng Xiutao and the others to change. Their attacks became less vicious, and it was obvious that they had been restrained by Donghua Laozu's desperation. If a Dharma adept self-destructed his core space, there was no guarantee that the dozens of late core forging adepts in the dojo would be able to survive. Even if the space around the dojo was destroyed, it was hard to say how many of the Dharma adepts would be able to survive the turbulence in space. Just as everyone was hesitating to attack Zhang Shi, the previously unstable aura around Zhang Shi suddenly changed, and a deep and vigorous life force radiated from his body. The expressions of Feng Xiutao, the 3 Dharma adepts from the Shuoyan Pavilion, and the Haiyan sect all changed, and the 3 of them actually launched their final attack in Zhang Shi's direction at the same time. Donghua Laozu's expression changed drastically. He would not be able to block this attack. Chapter 660. A leaf seemed to drift along with the wind. Right when the Donghua forefather was feeling despair, this leaf suddenly seemed to have been lifted up by the aftershocks of the battle between the 4 of them, and it blocked Feng Xiutao's path of attack. Jiang Tianlin, what is the meaning of this? Feng Xiutao's expression turned cold when he saw this leaf. He was very familiar with this leaf. It was one of the personal treasures of his nemesis, Jiang Tianlin. The leaf fluttered and undulated in Feng Xiutao's god art as if it was extremely weak. Even so, the leaf still dissolved most of the power of Feng Xiutao's god art as it fluttered. With Jiang Tianlin's strength, it was naturally impossible for him to only block half of the power of Feng Xiutao's spell. Jiang Tianlin's plan was to not kill Donghua, but to not let him have it easy either. Jiang Tianlin's plan naturally did not escape the eyes of all the Dharma adepts present. However, they could not say much about it. At most, they would just say that Jiang Tianlin had attacked in a hurry and could not use his full strength. On the contrary, Jiang Tianlin had attacked in the end. Donghua Laozu still owed Jiang Tianlin a huge favor for this. Brother Feng, you have to take a closer look. I'm sure you're more familiar with the might of the 7-colored restriction in the central palace than I am. Do you think that if Mr. Donghua and fellow Taoist Zhang were to perish with our strength, what do you think our chances of breaking the restriction are? Jiang Tianlin's words were directed at Feng Xiutao, but they were also directed at the Dharma adepts of the Shuoyan Pavilion and the Haiyan sect. Indeed, after hearing Jiang Tianlin's words, the attacks of the other 2 Laozu weakened. At this moment, a clear cracking sound suddenly came from Zhang Shi's body. He had broken his core and formed his Dharma. A surge of spiritual qi surged from all over Zhang Shi's body, especially from his chest. The spiritual qi gathered above his head and gradually formed a half-sized elephant with a long trunk. The elephant raised its trunk and gave a loud roar. The cold wind swept in all directions, and a faint pressure grew from nothing, from weak to strong. This was the blood pressure that only a Dharma adept could possess. Before Donghua Laozu could rejoice, the attacks of the Ocean Flame sect, Water Mist Pavilion, and Feng Xiutao had already arrived before Donghua Laozu. Zhang Shi suddenly opened his eyes. The The Dharma idol that had just materialized above his head lifted its two front legs and stomped on Feng Shidao's attack. A strange vibration came from the feet of the Dharma idol, as if waves of space waves were stirred up, dissolving Feng Shidao's attack. Feng Shidao's expression changed, and he snorted heavily. In the end, he did not attack again. This was because he could tell that although Zhang Shi had just become a Dharma adept and was not at a stable level, with the help of the Dharma Power Soul, his level of training was not as simple as someone who had just broken through to the early Dharma stage. Furthermore, what Zhang Tianlin had said earlier was the truth. For the sake of the Central Palace, Feng Shutao had no choice but to temporarily give up on suppressing Donghua Laozu. Furthermore, even though Feng Shutao's attack had been dispelled by Zhang Tianlin and Zhang Shi, the combined attacks of the Water Mist Pavilion and the Ocean Flame Sex Laozu still inflicted more injuries on Donghua Laozu. When Donghua Laozu's two flying treasures were attacked by the two, one of the flying treasures was broken into two. The destruction of his natal treasures caused Donghua Laozu's mental state to be severely injured. Blood flowed from his mouth as he glared viciously at the two Laozu from the Water Mist Pavilion and the Ocean Flame Sect. The destruction of his natal treasures had caused Donghua Laozu's strength to be greatly reduced. However, more importantly, Donghua Laozu had initiated the tribulation of the early Dharma stage, and his dream of advancing to the mid-Dharma stage would probably be pushed back by several decades. Destroying one's foundation was tantamount to killing one's parents. However, Donghua Laozu forcefully swallowed his anger. The situation before him was very clear. Although he had been severely injured, he still had the strength of a Dharma stage cultivator. At this moment, Zhang Shi had temporarily advanced to the Dharma stage, and coupled with the Linggu sect's Lingyun Laozu, there was no one else in this dojo who had the strength to win against them other than Jinling. Furthermore, the cultivators of the various sects would definitely not fight amongst themselves for the sake of the Central Palace. Zhang Tianlin was the first to laugh and say, "Everyone, this is not the time for us to fight amongst ourselves. The largest and most important Central Palace in this Yingtian dojo has yet to be opened. If we were to fight here, then we would have entered a treasure trove and come out with some useless treasures. Although they might be of some value, in reality it would not be worth it." At this moment in the Yingtian dojo, regardless of the power of the sects behind them or the strength of the cultivators present, Zhang Tianlin was undoubtedly the best person to unite the forces of the various sects and open the Central Palace. At this moment, Zhang Tianlin seemed to be unwilling to pass on this responsibility. Although Zhang Tianlin and Laozu's few words were unable to resolve the tense situation, the cultivators of the various sects did not continue to provoke them. Instead, most of them began to listen attentively to Zhang Tianlin's words. This result was rather satisfactory to Zhang Tianlin. He continued to say, "Just now, I have already asked my sex formation grandmaster, junior sister Xian Chan, and found out that the light screen of this Central Palace is not only the key to protecting the entire Yingtian dojo, but there is also a large spirit vein beneath this Central Palace that is used to support the operation of the formations and restrictions of the entire dojo. This also means that the light screen formed by the 749 colored restrictions has already greatly exceeded the original level of protection." As Zhang Tianlin said this, he paused for a moment. Indeed, he saw that the various sects Laozu had begun to ask their own formation grandmasters or formation masters. After receiving the same opinion as perfected Xianchen, the expressions on the faces of all the Laozus turned serious. It was obvious that they also agreed with what Zhang Tianlin and Laozu had just said. Ancestor Zhang Tianlin smiled and said, "Therefore, if everyone does not join forces now, I think this trip to the Yingtian dojo will end here. However, don't forget that although we have set up a large concealment formation outside the Yingtian dojo, we have to break through the restrictions along the way. With 9 Dharma adepts and more than 10 late core forging adepts working together, the formation outside the dojo will not be able to conceal us. If we leave now, the cultivators from the other central sects will definitely gather here after hearing the news. At that time there will be nothing left for us to do." Feng Shutao snorted coldly and said, "Zhang Tianlin, you don't have to provoke us. We can all see this clearly. However, the crux of the problem is that this last palace was attacked by the 9 sects together. Once we break through the light screen, how are the treasures inside going to be divided? Although Dongwu Laozu had destroyed one of his natal treasures, he still had the abilities of a Dharma adept. When he heard this, he smiled coldly at Feng Shutao and said, "Do you even need to ask? Of course, we will rely on our own abilities and our own opportunities." Although the Songhai sect had almost become the target of public criticism just now, after Zhang Shi had advanced to the Dharma stage, the Songhai sect suddenly had 2 Dharma adepts, causing their strength to surpass that of the other 7 sections. If it wasn't for the fact that Zhang Tianlin had fought 1 against 3 and severely injured Patriarch Long River last night, causing the Dongwu Patriarch to be fearful, the Dongwu Patriarch might have even challenged the Zhanling sect's authority in the dojo. As soon as Dongwu Laozu's words left his mouth, he was met with opposition from the various sects, especially from the various sects who had participated in the attack on the Songhai sect. The crowd was in an uproar, but in the end they still had no idea what to do. Zhang Tianlin stood in the center and smiled slightly. He watched as the various sects insisted on their own opinions and fought for the benefits of their respective sections. Dongwu Laozu's face was dark. Now, the various sects were obviously very wary of the Songhai sect suddenly having 2 Dharma adepts. From their words, it seemed like they wanted to impose restrictions on the Songhai sect. This made Dongwu Laozu very angry, but there was nothing he could do. He inadvertently saw that Zhang Tianlin seemed to have a card up his sleeve as he stood at the side, and his heart jolted slightly. No matter how Zhang Tianlin had weakened Feng Shutao's attack just now, the old ancestor Dongwu owed Zhang Tianlin a favor. Even though the old ancestor Dongwu felt that Zhang Tianlin had an ulterior motive in helping him, the old ancestor Dongwu had to repay this favor. Does martial nephew Jiang have any other opinions? Dongwu Laozu asked loudly, causing the cultivators of the various sects to fall silent. Zhang Tianlin smiled faintly, as if he had already expected this. He chuckled lightly and said, "I can't say that I have any opinions, but I do have some opinions. If there's anything wrong with what I say, I hope that the various elders and friends here can correct me." Dongwu Laozu had just swallowed the spirit pill passed down by the Songhai sect, and his complexion was much better than before. It could be seen that the various sects valued the rewards from this trip to the Yingtian dojo very much. Many spirit pills and medicines had already been prepared in advance. This was also the most important reason why the various sects were able to calm down even when the battle was about to break out. After paying such a heavy price, this trip to the Yingtian dojo definitely could not end on a strong note. Dongwu Laozu smiled and said, "Martial nephew Jiang, feel free to speak your mind." The various sects Laozu cursed inwardly. Since when did your Songhai sect become so close to Jinling? However, the 2 of them were echoing each other, and it was indeed enough to make the various sects Laozu wary. None of them dared to interrupt them. Zhang Tianlin Laozu pondered for a moment before saying solemnly, "This central palace is a grotto heaven artifact. I believe that everyone has already noticed the clues." The various sects Laozu all nodded. Zhang Tianlin Laozu then continued, "In that case, after the restriction is broken, there should be a portion of the treasures in the palace that will rush out due to the sudden opening of the grotto heaven. In my opinion, this portion of the treasures can be sealed first, and then the order of selection will be determined based on the contribution each sect made during the process of breaking the restriction. What do you all think?" The various sects Laozu were a little confused. At this moment, Zhang Shi suddenly asked, "Brother Jiang, can you explain further?" For example, how will Brother Jiang determine the contribution each sect made during the process of breaking the restriction? Zhang Shi's words were exactly what the various sects Laozu were thinking. For a moment, everyone fell silent again as they waited for Zhang Tianlin's explanation. "That's easy. I believe that all of you still have some trump cards up your sleeves, so there's no need to hide them anymore. Out of the 49 colored restrictions, the sect that destroyed the most will have the right to choose first. What do you all think?" At the end of the day, it still depends on the strength of each sect. The more powerful the sect, the more restrictions they will destroy. Feng Shutao's expression was very unhappy. He knew that this way, even if his strength had increased greatly, he might not be able to compete with the Songhai sect and Zhang Tianlin, who had 2 Dharma adepts. Furthermore, the combined strength of Jinling's 4 late-core forging adepts could not be underestimated. It is to use strength to overcome order. Do you have a better idea, Brother Feng? Jiang Tianlin asked. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.